William. Ato in Juba, Malatori, hey, yo, in Ping William. Ato in Benti, wala kwaju, hey, wow, in Ping William. Ato in Malakal, wala Pinyaram, in Ping William.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you turning in. My name is Abraham Medin Majak. For those of you watching in Facebook, YouTube, and listening in Clubhouse, please start sharing this live broadcast. My guest for this evening in Juba is my brother Ilmun Yakani. Ilmun Yakani will weigh in today to give us what's going on. This is a political thing going on, election, the road to election of 2024. So we see those two political parties, SPLM-IO, SPLM-IG, they are campaigning hard. So we will dive into this conversation to see what are the next. So for those of you there, please start sharing the video. Let me welcome my guest. Ilmun, welcome to the show again. We see that South Sudan is in election mood. That is wow is turning into red. Malakal turning into blue. So what is happening? What's going on? Give us an update. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. I'd like to say first, hi for hosting me and for your listeners. South Sudan is unpredictable. If you have a gloomy face at any time, South Sudanese can make you smile. As we speak now, Malakal is blue, Wow is red, Juba is mixed. What is next in the phase of the looming elections? And as these people speak, like as the infrastructure for elections and the legal framework for elections is in place. But as we speak now, we have that gap. So I hope we can have a conversation. I've been following both cities closely, and also I've been in the whole day relating to the leadership of both parties at Juba level to see how they look at each other. And also I'm interested in terms of what type of incidents is it associated if we talk of free and safe environment for the conduct of election by December 2024. And also what does this mean to violence? As we today speak, that the slogan is now very clear. Malakal blue, Wow red, Juba is mixed. What is next in the phase of this looming election? So that is our topic as we speak per now. So thank you.
Thank you, Ilmun Yakani. Yes. So what is going on now? I saw a lot of mood between both two political parties. They are supporting their side on their base. Let's talk one at a time. So let's talk about the event going on in Malakal. I mean, not in Malakal. Let's talk about focus first in Wow. So President just left Juba this morning and went there. We see a lot of turnout, thousands and thousands of people turn out on the street, seen yesterday. So what is the message? So is it President and SPLM party as a party, they are doing a campaign in Wow for the election of 2024. So can you give us perspective what's going on in Malakal, in Wow right now? Thank you.
Thank you. As you said, Wow, as it is red as it is today, it is a color of the SPLM, the ruling party, where the president comes from. It is a city where now they're all shouting everything is Woye. So like the Woye have to cover the cloud of Wow town. But the event is not only for Wow. The event is for the region of Bahra Ghazal. As we speak now, let me put some facts straightforward. First, the numbers that you have seen big in Wow town is not only numbers of population of Wow. These are numbers that come across what you call Bahra Ghazal region states. And that means these numbers are drawn from Rumbek, these numbers are drawn from Warab, these numbers are drawn from Northern Bahra Ghazal, these numbers are drawn from Warab and then plus Western Bahar Ghazal State. So Western Bahar Ghazal, Northern Bahar Ghazal, Lake State, and Warab have drawn that number that you see in Wow Town, so that nobody will say like, oh, that is what do you call, like a population of Wow that has come out. No, it's a population that was collected from those 4 locations. So it's a whole Bahar Ghazal SPLM campaign. That, if I can put in a slogan, is the whole Bahar Ghazal coming to campaign. What is the ultimate goal of this campaign? This ultimate goal of the campaign is the region of Bahar Ghazal is going to endorse His Excellency President Salva Kiir Mayardit as the chairman of the SPLM, as their flag bearer for electable position of the president as the looming election of December 2024 is coming. Or in other way around is to make a seal that nobody else in Bahar Ghazal region within the SPLM will stand up to challenge His Excellency President Salva as a chairperson of the SPLM. The contradictory fact of it is here that less than a month or less than a week, President have issued a party directives as a chair for stopping party endorsement of candidature for electable position. But that order is not applied for him because he is going to be endorsed. So it means the order is for any electable position below the presidency. So that's one thing that is a bit, people can say is a contradictory. But at the end of the day, the region of Bahar Ghazal is going to endorse His Excellency President Salva as the chairman of the SPLM as their only party flag bearer for electable position of the presidency as elections comes. That is one thing. But of course, there also it gives a bit of a challenge to the SPLM that as they have now used Bahar Ghazal as a regional hub for endorsement of the president, will the president repeat this endorsement in other 2 regions, in Equatoria and Upper Nile region? That's the next question that comes forward. And also the same goes to what is happening in Malakal, as we have seen the SPLM-IO was there, and of course there are in some states before like that. So that is one thing that comes out, message very clear. But I think also His Excellency is going for an endorsement in Bahar Ghazal region to become the flag bearer. The SPLM so-called chairpersons of the state of Bahar Ghazal may also take advantage of this particular presence of president, not to question directly, but diplomatical question. Okay, you issue a party directive as a chair for stoppage of endorsement of party candidature for electable position. What about us? For instance, who are these particular people? You have Governor Ring for Lake State may need to get a clearance of endorsement. Governor of Warab may need to get a clear endorsement. And then the deputy governor of Western Bahar Ghazal State, Zakaria, Joseph Zakaria need to get a clear endorsement as a party flag bearer for that particular electable position. And then the governor of Northern Bahar Ghazal also need to get a clear endorsement, because that's how it is. Now, if you see with him, he's not alone. With him also, there's quite a number of other political leaders that come from that region. And you have also other particular candidature of SPLM, like His Excellency Vice President Wani Iga, His Excellency Vice President Taban Deng. They're also on the ground to back him up. But of course, that's the message that I'd like to say. But as it is a campaign, and the campaign is towards election looming, one of the unfortunate events that has surfaced there is the presence of our Chief Justice. So in social media in Juba, there's a question, why Chief Justice in red color, in the presence of red color in WOW, but not in the presence of blue color in Malakal? So that raised the independence of the judiciary. And I think really it's something looks small, looks light, but it may offer a threat to the independence of the judiciary. And I wish that Chief Justice could have been, yes, I know he's a son of the region, he comes from that region, but the position he's holding in terms of the looming election is very critical in terms of maintaining the identity of non-partisanship. That's something that comes forward. But the good thing is that also that I like to put forward is that at least Governor Sarah Kileto, who is an SPLM-IO governor, was able to attend the event of the SPLM. She have shown a political maturity as a governor. It's because in some state, SPLM governors tend to dodge. But now Sarah Kileto, as a governor of SPLM-IO, have shown her face. And of course, you can see the image on the screen. Lam is there as SPLM secretary. Elders of the SPLM that come from those regions are there, and Sarah Kileto is close to them. When you compare to Malakal, the deputy governor, who is an SPLM, is totally absent in the IO event. The only SPLM political cadre at the level of governor or deputy governor I've seen is been active in IO events, and I will repeat myself, is only deputy governor of Jongole State. I've seen him going officially to SPLM-IO event and as a partner to SPLM-IO as a partner in peace. So Sarakeleto have shown that that's a very good indicator that also Sarakeleto have shown a bit of maturity, which is a good news. Of course, the big question is, Angelina is in Malakal, why not react in WOW to show solidarity? So why are we not seeing like the partners, the two principal parties coming together? If we can see Angelina in Malakal with blue color, we used to see another red color close to her. And as we see president with red color in Malakal, we used to see first vice president close to him. So that question of trust and confidence among SPLM and SPLM-IO is clearly demonstrated in these two events of Malakal and WOW. And I think that is one of the big political challenge for both parties. For both parties, the party of the IO and the party of the SPLM, how can they convince the nation that politically they have nurtured trust and confidence to have things to move in a better way for transition the country from violence to peace? Those are some of the comparative messages that comes out. But WOW clearly have endorsed His Excellency President as a flag bearer of SPLM for the position of the electable position of presidency. And I don't think anybody is going to merge again from Bahar Ghazal to challenge His Excellency President within the SPLM to contest whether independent or not independent candidate. So what are the messages? Maybe I need to share with the audience. What are the key messages coming from the ground in WOW as I'm keeping on watching? As I speak with you right now, still I'm watching. The message is very clear. One is that the commitment for elections is critical. And you can see this symbol of Honorable Governor greeting His Excellency President. I think if that symbol could have happened like that in Malakal, we could have felt that yes, trust and confidence have been nurtured for peace and stability. So those are good images for your audience to look at. And later we can see in the interactive sessions as we're going to go ahead. But it could have been a very good beginning if we can replicate this across the states. And if we can have first Vice President Dr. Riek leaving Juba, going to the states, that will be very good critical. Apart from going to POC in Juba, we hope that to get out of Juba town and go to Malakal, go to WOW, go to Warab, go to everywhere and show a solidarity for peace and solidarity for transition. So the message is coming from WOW is that commitment for peace is very essential. But of course, one of the things that we try to convey in advance as civil society, not me alone, quite a number of activists, is we question President to tell us exactly in WOW, what does he feel that constitute the good enough condition for the conduct of elections? Good enough, he was able to reflect back to the challenge of delay in unification of the forces. That's a very good message, that he realized that without the forces, the credibility of conducting free and fair elections is very low, or even having elections that really, without interference of violence, is very low without the forces being unified. You have acknowledged that. And the question of open political and civic space for all political parties to have freedom of expression, assembly. And I'd like to tell your audience, we as an organization, we have already started rolling out what we call domestic pre-election stage monitoring. As we speak per now, we issue monthly domestic observation report. At least for the last 2 weeks, we have seen an open in the political space. Where is the open? In Juba, we have seen 5 political parties newly been launched. And as they've been launched, there's no restriction for their launch of the event. What are the parties? We have one party called National Patriotic Party. And this National Patriotic Party is a coming together of young lawyers headed by the son of one of the sons of Central Equatoria called Makelele, who was abandoned in the policing service. His son is called Issa Muzemil. He launched a party which bring together young lawyers, and they call themselves National Patriotic Party. And they have been launched, and in the attendance, the registrar of the political parties was there, which a good example. They are not very restricted. I was there observing with observers. And then the party of South Sudan National Movement, they launched their offices. There's no restriction so much. We have seen the launch of Malakal Party, the National Democratic Movement, NDM. They launched also, they opened their office in Juba. There's no restriction. And we have 2 other parties who are launched, which are members of SOA without any restriction. That is a good indicator if it can be sustained. And if it can be sustained beyond Juba. Because we have seen some events either of SPLM-IO or other parties, they have been thrown plastics. So the message is that there's a few radical and unlawful-minded SPLM members that like to carry certain events of justifying SPLM is a dominant and nobody should challenge it, but they demonstrate that in a very negative way. And it's the same thing also happening from some members of SPLM-IO against SPLM, like what happened to SPLM in Fangak when the commissioner is one of our colleagues who was an activist who later on joined IO, but he demonstrated something which is very bad, giving an SPLM-IO a very bad image to tell your fellow South Sudanese citizens from different political party colors to leave your county headquarters in 24 hours and you throw to them skulls of dead bodies. That's inhuman from the commissioner of Fangak, who is an SPLM-IO commissioner. So those misconduct and political indiscipline, if can be corrected by the principle, is very good. Because in Western Bahar Ghazal and in WOW in particular, SPLM-IO is finding sort of like a challenge from their counterpart, SPLM. And SPLM believe that they want to show WOW is a complete strongholder of SPLM. And sometimes they like to terrorize or undermine or even try to interrupt SPLM-IO events, which for me is a very bad practice. So at least today, presence of president there, he have spoken to question of respecting political parties. And I hope that that message of his can be heard beyond the party, because we have people in National Security Service who like to behave like it's their SPLM. They don't want any other party to behave except apart from the SPLM, as if national security is clearly painted to be red. National security have no color. They are not for red, they're not for blue, they're not for yellow, they're not for whatever. They are for the safety of the country, and they are for the respect of human rights, respect of political space, not to be interrupted if anybody's trying to do. So there are some elements within the National Security Service who want to glorify SPLM over other political parties, which is wrong, which is wrong practice from them. And I think with the president in WOW, that's going to be a headache. One particular hardcore issue for president going to find it hard, specifically from Western Bahar Ghazal community, the host state of this Bahar Ghazal SPLM event, it's a question of WOW county headquarters. Because WOW county headquarters has become a political agenda between SPLM and SPLM-IO. SPLM-IO want a dialogue around it. SPLM say if there's no dialogue around it, they have to go. And remember, the question of WOW county headquarters is one of the triggers that made the WOW indigenous community of WOW county have to join the SPLM-IO and launch a revolution. So I think president have that issue. He need to manage it with his presence in WOW. But in overall assessment, I would say that the WOW of being red and Malakal being blue is a good political beginning where we use political ideology rather than ethnicity and rather than the guns and the bullets. If we can have that culture of political maturity, having open space and reaching out to the citizens. And let me tell you, being red, being blue is not being dressed for free. Some sodas are attached, some cakes are attached. So some people, when they have those reds being spread across and those blues being spread across, they're getting some income to their pockets. So those colors have become sometimes source of livelihood. So you can dress it as much. So you can find somebody today with red. Next tomorrow, if blue come with 50,000, they can put blue. So citizens will play around. Of course, this is the game of the side added benefit of what they call the dividends of open political space. You can eat the money of the politicians and you can decide to do what you want. So that is a demonstration. I wish to see Juba, who will run it, the red or the blue. That's the next question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edmond. Yeah, if we let us stay in WOW for a second. We have seen the governor of WOW came out with, and you see in the picture. Let me bring her picture with the president very quick. So she's right there, stating she welcomed President. In the people, a lot of them, and I am monitoring the social media, and I have seen people are criticizing her that why she didn't wear a blue hat and blue T-shirt for her party. Why she didn't show that? Can you talk a little bit about it in your perspective way? Why she didn't dress up for her IO political party T-shirt and hat?
First, what I would like to bring forward is that this is an SPLM political event. And I don't think that we need to really maturely bring a culture of confrontation. That's one thing that I'd like to tell our audience, is that we shouldn't take any political event, because there will be also a day of SPLM-IO event. So nobody should confront SPLM-IO with red color. It's more confrontational. You know, with the politics, colors can trigger violence. So being as a governor, as an official leader, and welcoming president who is at the same time a chairperson of a ruling party, I think for me, my advice is that Sarah Kileto have done a maturity demonstration of leadership. Because if she wear blue and receive the president, that become a political confrontation, which for me, we shouldn't entertain that, because politically, when elections are coming, we can fight with colors. But I think she shows a sense of leadership to His Excellency President. First, I welcome you as a president of the country. I'm your subordinate as a governor, but also I embrace you with your political party. The next turn is going to be, if IO is doing their event, will SPLM come in red? What will that mean? So Sarah is already setting a presidency of political discipline and political respect, that when I'm doing a political party event, I need to be part and parcel because we are partners in peace. I don't confront you. And it's the same thing. I wish I could have the picture of the governor, of deputy governor of Jongole in SPLM-IO. He didn't go with red. He went normal. He dressed his suit with a normal shirt. He didn't go red. He didn't wear SPLM symbol, because also he's giving gesture to SPLM that in Jongole, we respect you as a party. We are partners in peace. That's the spirit we need to do. This is spirit of arguing like she should be in blue. Is a confrontational attitude. And these are behaviors of political indiscipline, you know? And that is where political maturity is tested. Even soon somebody will go, okay, why she doesn't wear blue? And why she doesn't have this ethnic identity to confront the ethnic identity of the component? You know, that's the way how we lose what you call political maturity. Political maturity is demonstrated by high level of political discipline and political respect of your opponent. You don't see your opponent as an enemy. You see your opponent as a competitor from a non-violent point of view, because colors can demonstrate violence. Violence is not necessarily physical. So for me, my credit goes to Honorable Governor Sarah, is that she have challenged the SPLM. If IO going to do their event, will the SPLM misbehave by confronting SPLM-IO by with colors? Have you seen? Though we can use the language of the deputy governor of Upper Nile, but later on, if you go to Malakal, he tried to what do you call this? There's this word in UN when they're voting. He tried to abstain himself from being close to Madam Angelina when she was in Malakal. That's a challenge. That's a challenge to the SPLM. That's a challenge to the deputy governor. Here, Sarah Kileto have shown it. But also, I like the demonstration of the president. He went completely as a party leader, but he was received. He was not being ignored. He's been received as a president. And I think that also gives president a signal of confidence that even though if Sarah Kileto is a governor of IO in Western Baragazali state, Sarah Kileto respect him as a chairperson of the SPLM and as a president. And that is what we call healthy politics is being played. Matured politics is being played. Disciplinary politics is being played. And that is what we call non-violent of political engagement for better political transactions that will lead the country to move away from violence to peace. And that is how you nurture the culture of democracy. The culture of democracy is not confrontation. The culture of democracy is you must admit and you must engage with what you feel is within your interest, that you feel is an interest of overall best position of the citizen. What they want is stability and political challenge. Colors never play. It is, but then later on, the power of our ballot. We're going to the ballot boxes. So you can run out with your red colors, you can run out with your blue colors. We may vote for somebody with the black color, and we have eaten your bull of the red color, your bull of the blue color. We have taken your sodas of the red color, of the blue color. We will decide. So for me, it's a question of political maturity. So I would like to challenge those who want a confrontational approach, that let us show political maturity. Let us show political discipline. By if one party is doing its event, let's not interrupt. Let's allow them to do it, because tomorrow, next tomorrow, you will have yours with your color. You will do it the same respect they offer them, they'll offer to you, because if you want to be respected, you better respect. So in simple terms, I would like to tell those SPLM-IO members that feel annoyed why Sarah didn't wear blue. Actually, the message I want to tell them is that Sarah have shown maturity, but also Sarah have challenged the SPLM. If one day become an SPLM event, will they come in red colors to fight? Because that's a non-violent war. That's a confrontation. But I think for me, it's a question of political maturity. And I know some of us, we can argue as much as we are, but ethnicity shapes our thinking and shapes the way how we want to communicate. And that is a virus that we need to liberate out of our minds. We must be nationalist, and we must confront the reality by ensuring that the law is applied to all equally without any form of discrimination. So for me, this is the point of argument that we need to work around it. So I would like to challenge the SPLM, and I would like to challenge the SPLM-IO that avoid confrontational politics in terms of confrontation by the use of the colors. Be matured, be responsible, be disciplined. That's the South Sudan that we want, so that we live like another nation in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Ian Munyakani. Yes, you are absolutely right, because these two events, SPL-IO in Malakal, and we see SPLM-IG in WOW, and I see a lot of turnout in WOW, and majority of them, you see, they were right. And you know, Barakazal, Northern Barakazal, we see in the report that there were some of the member of SPL-IO has been arrested, and also there is and the IO that complaining that the SPLIG are arresting that member in Barakazal area. Now in this event that President joined in WOW, do you think this will clear the political atmosphere that all that SPLM-IG will allow that SPL-IO member to campaign freely across the country, in particular in Barakazal region? So what is your message to SPL-IG and SPL-IO to give that the way for the political space for the people can go and talk freely, like the freedom of speech? Nobody can be intimidated and arrested when you talk about your political party and who that you support, whether you are supporting SPLM or SPLM-IG. So what is your message to send to these two political parties? And we will continue to talk about other parties that join in. So can you give us a little brief about that? And then before I ask you the next question regarding about, and we see that all the governors of Barakazal went to WOW, and they went there with their team. So every commissioner, governor went with their team, so to support that event. So what is that? The way that they did that, is it? And I don't understand, because I want you to talk more about the election, the Artigono rule when the election conducted in 2024. Now this election, this seems like the South Sudanese will actually go to election in 2024. So what are the difficult challenges? Because this primary election is not here, as I can see, because I see that President Salva Kiir has been appointed by SPLM-IG as their leading chairman for the next election. Give us the more detail about that. Thank you so very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start first the first segment of the thematic focus of your questions about the future of SPLM-IO, political freedom in the region of Barakazal. First, I'd like to say the region of Barakazal has been hostile to SPLM-IO. There are incidents of political violations. In northern Barakazal, SPLM-IO event was closed. In Warab, they were beaten up when they were wearing their T-shirts. In Rumbek, they were harassed, but the ring is trying to be moderate among the governors of Barakazal who are SPLM. The ring a bit somehow moderate, but of course, you remember the case of Commissioner of Yerol, who was later on kicked out and revoked without even the party having consensus there. And of course, before the former governor, before Ring, who is an SPLM, they have competition with deputy governor, who is down now, who is an SPLM-IO and deputy governor to Ring. And in WOW, whenever SPLM-IO is organizing event, either young people, street boys are mobilized to throw to them crystals with water, either with petrol, disturbing the event. So the region of Barakazal was not being soft for SPLM-IO. Now, the SPLM going from whole Barakazal states and assembling in WOW as a state which is governed by SPLM-IO, it's really a big challenge to the SPLM behaviors, because what Sarah Kileto did is that she demonstrated that she is a governor of SPLM-IO, but she embraced freedom of assembly association for the SPLM, which, as you said, all of them have gone to the state. And that's, for me, That's something that SPLM-IO should jubilate, and SPLM should feel threatened. Because as you said, if President leave tomorrow and he comes back to Juba, will SPLM allow SPLM-IO to play politics and to run political event in Northern Baragazal without any restriction, in Warab without any restriction, in Rumbek without any restriction, in Wa without any interruption? So that's the next question that's going to face the SPLM. And I think SPLM leadership need to communicate to its structures that don't interfere. And this also comes back to members of security institutions who believe that they represent SPLM. They don't represent any other political party. So the question also, will there be a shift of attitude change within the National Security Service that SPLM-IO is as equal as SPLM, and any party is as equal as SPLM-IO, as SPLM. Every party have that freedom of association, assembly, and expression, and running political rallies. That's one thing that is going to challenge, because Baragaza region has been harder for SPLM-IO to break, as it have registered actually in the regional violence. Region of Baragaza have registered more incidents against SPLM-IO compared to the region of Upper Nile and Equatoria. That's one thing that I like to make it very clear. And I think President is going to address that. I don't think that he escaped that. And I'm quite sure Governor Sarakileto will not remain silent, because in the region of Baragazal, if you talk about a sitting SPLM-IO leader that is senior to all SPLM-IO structures, is Governor Sarakileto, and she have welcomed the president as the picture show, and I'm quite sure she's going to post the president. You are here as a president, but also as a chairman of SPLM. We have availed you all the freedoms. Can you tell your party members who are with us here, the governor of Warab, the governor of Northern Baragazal, the governor of Lakes, to respect, and the deputy governor of Western Baragazal, to respect us the same way we respected you? So that's a post of challenge to the SPLM. So my message to SPLM, who might have been listening to me, is that you are subject for evaluation after President left to Juba, in terms of behaviors of the SPLM against the SPLM-IO or any other party. But also at the same time, it's a question. It's a question that also will go back to institution of the national security, how it looks like. So that's those some of the things that is going to happen. That's going to play a role there. And of course, I've seen this person who's raising my question to Edmond is tell the deputy governor of Lakes State refused to attend the event after official invitation by the Lakes governor. Obviously, politicians have attitude. Some politicians are so radical. We have radicals within the SPLM. We have radicals within the SPLM-IO. We have people who have personal grievances, and they want to turn their personal grievances against other structures. So my brother who is asking the question, my question to him is that if decided to go, is a political indiscipline is demonstrating. But I wish that actually all SPLM-IO cadres could have joined their counterparts and go to WOW. But obviously, it's a question of political maturity. And specifically, when you have political maturity with ethnic competition behaviors, you cannot entertain any political challenge. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge that goes to the deputy governor of the SPLM-IO in Lake State. But for me, I feel that at least Sarakileto have demonstrated a leadership of SPLM-IO in receiving His Excellency President. So if President leave, that's going to be the challenge to the SPLM, and even at the headquarters level, at the regional level. Any incident registered against SPLM-IO after the president's visit to it's actually not a plus to the SPLM. It will be minus. Why minus? Because they will make any discontented SPLM member will run to join the SPLM-IO. And we have seen already this happening less than a month in Northern Baragazal, where 2 members of SPLM defected to join the SPLM-IO, and one of them was arrested and detained. So those are some of the challenges that is going to face the SPLM in the region of Baragazal. Any threat to the SPLM or to the SPLM-IO or to other political parties is not going to be a plus for the SPLM. It's going to be minus, and it's going to be a plus for SPLM-IO. So for me, I think the SPLM needs to be bit matured enough and embrace the same spirit that they have been using for their party rally in WOW. They should allow for other parties to reach over that. That's one thing that I like to bring forward. Now, coming to the elections, the campaigns that are going on now, I like to say these are premature campaigns. Of course, with the politics, you don't wait. If you wait at last minute, people at the finishing line, it will be too late for you. but also with the spirit of the agreement, of the revitalized peace agreement. Legally, there are opportunities that political parties can come forward to go to campaign, but this campaign has the elections. Why I say is a premature campaign? It's premature because first, the legal and the institutional infrastructure that constitutionally is constitutional task to run elections are not in place. What are they, for example? We have National Election Commission is not reconstituted. We have the Political Parties Council was not reconstituted. As we speak now, the electoral law amendments are before the parliament. It's not yet been passed and signed by the president into a law. So the legal framework in the name of election law 2020-12 with amendment bill 2023, which is not in existence, qualify any campaign by now is premature. And without the reconstitution of the National Electoral Commission, the Political Parties Council, it shows institutional responsibility that is enshrined in Constitution for taking responsibility to shape the agenda for elections is not in existence. That's premature. But anyway, these are politicians that are implementing the agreement. They have to go for campaign. The next challenge in terms of the elections is now when president returns from WOW, what is going to be the behaviors of the parliament? Will they continue delaying the passing of the electoral law, or will they speed up the passing of the electoral law so that the National Election Commission is reconstituted? And by the way, also, the reconstitution of the National Election Commission does not need to wait for the law. They can reconstitute these institutions, and the institution of the National Electoral Commission can start its internal institutional preparation for the elections in terms of setting up its infrastructure, in terms of human resource, in terms of equipment, in terms of preparing themselves capacity, having internal discussion, what electoral system we're going to use, how simple it is, how can it be communicated easily to citizens. They can start thinking about what civic education can we set as a top priority to mobilize our citizens. How do we handle the issue of IDPs, refugees, constituency demarcations? These are all internal questions that the National Election Commission need to start arguing over it without waiting for the law. When the law comes and find them there. So that is that. So by default, there's sort of like a secret consensus among the parties that we're going for election. But if you're to look at the framework of the elections, and if I define the framework of the elections on what we can term them as a good enough precondition for the conduct of fair and credible elections, and before I judge whether the preconditions have been met or not, if I can name to the precondition per 5 events that I conducted together with Dr. Luca Bion, with a German expert called Nick, we have wrote this paper. The title is How Not to Hold Elections. It's me, Luca Bion, and then a German electoral expert called Nick. And we're able to organize 5 events. And the 5 events, we normally have a question of asking the audience. And the audience we ask, I'd like to share with your audience or the participants that we have engaged. For your audience know them, who rank this. We have worked with civil society. We have worked with religious leaders. We have worked with political parties. We have worked with academia. We have worked with MPs who sit at the Committee of Legislation and Justice that is entrusted to be responsible for enactment of the law. So that is a combination we have worked together with them. We have given them to vote on 5 conditions that define what we call the essential precondition for the conduct of elections. This is the ranking that came out. Number 1, safe and free environment. By safe and free environment, they refer to respect of freedom of expression, association, assembly, free media, civic education to be carried out by civil society. That is the first condition they rank. The second condition, unification of the forces and neutrality of the security institutions in creating an enabling environment for the elections. So it means forces need to be unified, and even if they're unified, they have to respect political space to be enjoyed by all political parties without any form of discrimination. That's the second factor. The third factor is resourcing the institutions that have responsibility with electoral event. That is what? The National Electoral Commission, the Political Parties Council, and don't forget about the National Constitution Review Commission, because constitution is prerequisite for the conduct of the election. That becomes the third. The fourth becomes the legal framework. And this legal framework includes the permanent constitution, the electoral law, and then the other legal frameworks like National Security Act, Police Act. They have to really be in comfortability with creating a conducive environment for election. Number 5, it's a question around reaching a code of conduct among the political parties for elections to meet the standard of credibility, free and fair elections. Those are the 5. And then later on followed by population census, and that has linked with demarcation constituency. But we have seen an argument in this forum that we're in. Some people are saying, if time caught us up with regard to question of IDPs and refugees, and with regard to question of constituencies, there's a consensus. Let's repeat the 2010 constituencies and let refugees have the right to vote for the seat of presidency. And let IDPs have the right to vote for all electable positions in country. Those are some of the arguments that were coming out. But as we speak now, if you look at these are 5 basic preconditions. Which of them is being made? Over 60%. None of them. When we talk of free and fair environment or safe environment, is still the incidence of restrictions as we speak per now. If you talk of redeployment of the forces, and by the way, when we say unification of the forces, it takes the 2 stages. It means all across the board of the security and defense institution have to be trained and then redeployed. As we speak per now, the first batch of the graduated unified forces are not being redeployed. Why they're not being redeployed? The first batch of the first graduated unified force, which is going for 1 year, waiting for redeployment, whether the forces are there or some of them have left out because they're not being redeployed until today. Why are they delayed to be redeployed? Because the middle command, which is in charge in offering command and order when the first batch is to be redeployed, is not being agreed upon. It's not been unified. It was less than a week, where now you can hear that actually the middle command of 350 seats were being distributed among the parties that have an armed group, which is SSPDF Tech 210, SPLM-IO Tech 105, and then SOA Tech 35. And actually, even the spokesperson of the SPLA-IO, the military wing of the SPLM-IO, have challenged the allocation of the seats. That means still consensus is not been reached. So you cannot redeploy the first graduated batch if you don't have the leadership that is to offer them command and order in terms of a structure of the security and defense institutions to behave as a unified force, because you need them to have the middle command. The unified central command may not be on the ground, but the middle command will be on the ground, and the middle command needs to be unified one in terms of slogans, affiliation. They don't belong to the parties. That has not been reached. That will delay the redeployment for almost 1 year. So that means even unification of the forces were still very far. Can we do that in 6 months? The answer is it possible if we fail to do it in almost 4 years? That's the question. And you graduate them more than a year, we could deploy them. So there's some of the factors. So I'd like to say the conducive environment for elections still require extra mile commitment from the parties to create it. As you said, we're going to go for elections. So whatever campaign is going now is a premature campaign, is a campaign that is not yet declared by a constitutional mandated body like the National Election Commission for such campaigns to go ahead. And that is a challenge for the president. And now, since president is in far front of this campaign, he will be challenged. If not at national level, at regional level, international will be challenged. How do you dare go to campaign and the legal and institutional framework is not yet in existence? So the challenge to president after he's coming back from WOW, I'm quite sure he may decide to reconstitute some of these essential institutions, National Election Commission, political parties, national constitution, and I think he may need also direct the security institutions to avail open political and civic space, because after a while, the president is really facing a challenge of exactly that's the freedom of expression, association, assembly. Is it allocated to everyone as the Bill of Rights in our constitution says? That's going to be the challenge. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Edmund. Let me welcome some of my guests in Clubhouse. More welcome, and Gerald Katas, Dr. Dwala again, and Comrade Allen. Welcome. So, my last question, so that I can give people in Clubhouse a chance to ask you questions. Let me move to Malakal. So we have seen Madam Angelina and the rest of IO team went to open their office in Malakal. And 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we have seen Vice President Dr. Waniga went to Malakal for the campaign of SPLM, and we see Malakal having a crisis. We have seen for the few weeks ago, we have seen the incident happen in IDP camp between Chuluka and Nuer. So, and we did talk about it last 2 weeks ago about we criticized the Vice President Dr. Wani about going there doing a rally campaign, and another part of the city, people are mourning and burying their loved one. So today, I'm here to criticize Madam Jelena with their team too, because they went there open political rally. Why they didn't talk about the incident happening in IDP camp, and also there are a lot of incidents we received that there even a fighting between IO killed some of the civilian in Ruwing state. I mean administrative. So my question to you: what is your message to IO went to Malakal, and I didn't see they talk about the conflict going on in between the two communities, Chuluka and Nuer in IDP camp, and incident happened in Ruwing state that many people have been killed there for I think it's happened on Sunday or Monday morning, if I can mistake. So can you comment on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm coming to Malakal. You know, normally there's this argument that application of the law is not easy. But normally I say to people that, you know, you cannot really check the application of the law if you don't test the law. Test the law. When you test the law, then you can know the application. So I think IO have tested the concept of open political space and civic space in Malakal, and they went there with their colors. But obviously, also, I'd like to tell you, it's a calculative game. Me and you and the rest of your audience here knows that we're in a political space. If WOW goes red, where can we go blue? Malakal become a side of let's go blue. So that's a calculative game of politicians. Whether that with the respect of loss of lives of innocents, no. And of course, someone like me, I've been in a very challenging position with the governor. Of course, you know the governor is an SPLM-IO governor, challenging when there was a looming mobilization of an attack to the IDP's camp, and the governor was denying, saying, no, nothing is like that. These are rumors and all these. Besides, we have credible sources. We have credible sources at level of citizen evidence, monitoring of citizen results, UNIMIS. These are credible institutions that will never lie to the world of what they have seen. And the evidence shows very clear that there's mobilization, but the governor was dismissing my statement, dismissing the statement of Traker, dismissing the statement of the religious leader, saying there's nothing wrong with Malakal. Malakal is okay. So maybe it's one particular identity from or one particular concept from Honorable Angelina, who is the chair of the SRD board. She went there to show that no, we are in charge of the state is okay. That's one thing that I like to say. But in terms of both SPLM and SPLM-IO showing solidarity for the loss of the South Sudanese in the IDP's camp, both of them have failed. I have to be honest. Both of them have failed, and both of them deserve to be criticized that actually we don't offer respect to the loss of the loved ones in the IDP's camps, and even those children that are suffering from mosquito bites, sleeping outside because of the violence. That's one thing that both parties have not shown a good gesture. I wish they could have first gone and show a sign of solidarity and condolence to the IDPs. That's first. So both of them deserve equal criticism. Here, I'm not going to be friendly to everyone. All of them deserve that criticism. But besides that, Malakal is becoming more complex. Complex in which sense? Complex in sense that there's a one layer intra-ethnic competition over Malakal. Then there's intra-competition over Malakal. In which sense? First, politically, SPLM and SPLM-IO are competing over Malakal. Now, when you open that up, you go to SPLM-IO, there's this remnant of SPLM-IO who walk away, call themselves Kitiguang, and the Kitiguang is no longer alone. The Kitiguang walk away with Agwelek. Agwelek decided to come in and leave their brothers of the Kitiguang, and the brother of the Kitiguang, as you speak, but today, we're getting information also they're splitting up between Simon Garwich and his chief of staff, who is Larkan, and Larkan is issuing a statement and dismiss Garuch is longer chair, and Garuch known, and I have changed of name another chief of staff. So that's continue, have implications on the stability of Malakal town, because it's around Malakal. That's one thing that happened. When it comes to the SPLM, the president stopped endorsement of a party member of the SPLM, and SPLM also have the internal crisis now. Who is coming? Who? There are those members say we are senior, though this current deputy governor is a member. So that's that crisis. So Malakal is confused. But at least in terms of testing the law, in terms of freedom of expression and assembly, IO have tested that. But that is not in respect of the lives of the innocent South Sudanese that we have lost in the IDP's camp when there was an ethnic clash between the Nuer and the Shuluk in the IDP's camp. But I don't think still that Malakal is a safe location. Still up to now, if the leaders does not sanction those misbehaviors among the gun class, in Malakal is going to be there. Another potential threat coming to Malakal that I'd like to bring forward. I'm not quite sure how long is coming only to join the president and wait without any political assignment. There's a likely may join the race of also I need to go back to the state as a governor. But remember, the state is an IO state, which they not give to a defector of an IO to go and take over. So it's not going to be easy. But also he may be going to the ground and show strength of weakening IO influence. That means proxy war will be aided. And Olonja has made it very clear is that war makes you to be respected. So he deserves to be respected. And I hope that he deserves to have a reward of defecting from IO, coming back. And as I repeat myself, I hope that he will not tell us, prove to us the song of Emmanuel Kembe is true, Alela Figaba, Bukur of Medina. I hope that we could not prove that right. But that also, and from my feeling, is that also the constituents of the Shuluk is not going to be one. The coming of Olonja said has been criticized in several social media. The king has been criticized. Why do you go there? And when you see what Dr. Malakal told the king, like, I can't come. Yes, my party is in system and my party have members at state level, but me in person, I don't want to come. So somehow like Malakal telling king, you cannot mobilize me to come. I'm not ready. But also elections is looming. Where is the fate of Dr. Lamia? He may also need to come and challenge and test the law. And whether the law will allow for him to run freely, like the same way how other parties are enjoying in WOW or are enjoying in Malakal, will I with this NDM have that privilege of also confront the citizens? I'm here as a candidate, I want to contest, and will he be allowed that space to play around? And we have seen from 2010 elections when confronted the seat of the presidency. So for me, Malakal is going to be tested. So for me, both SPLM and SPLM-IO, a high request of political discipline and maturity is required from them in terms of real administration of politics in the affairs of our Upper Nile states. Our brothers and sisters are suffering from these dirty games of politicians in Upper Nile state. That is making them to suffer, making them to be forced, where starvation is being used as a weapon of war against them, where growth human rights violations have been used against them. So for me, equally, SPLM and SPLM-IO have to take responsibility of ensuring Malakal is stable, because whatever happened among the communities in Malakal is a political proxy war of the political giants, of the political establishment that are in confrontation. Like this concept, like, why is Sarakilito not being blue? So for me, let us show political maturity and let us think beyond our ethnic affiliations. Some of us so much affiliated to tribe as if the tribe defined the national identity. I'm sorry to say this to some of us, not to all, but some of us who believe my tribe is everything. Without my tribe, there's nothing good. No, please, you're not nationalist. We either second to be a member of a customary court chief or a customary court structure. You don't speak to the nation, you speak to customary law and customary court. So you need to be very far from the center of administering national affairs. Yes, we know our constitution embraces ethnic diversity, but not as a political ticket to sanction affairs of public governance. That is wrong. So those of us who are thinking about from tribal line and they want to shape democracy with embracing tribal influence, I would like to tell them, shame on you. You are not a political player here. You are real an ethnic player that you need to see customary court and customary law where they are so that you end up there, whether at a Boma level or Payam level. But the moment you're merging to state, you're coming to national, forget about your ethnic identity. Think about the nationalism, have the merits of bringing South Sudanese together regardless of their colors. So this is a challenge to political attitudes of SPLM and SPLM-IO in Malakal. And I would like to tell them, always they want to make their politics to because of our peace and stability, as you have mentioned. Stability in Malakal is a stability for the whole country. A disagreement over a bottle of beer in Malakal between two ethnic groups is a national crisis. Why? So for me, that's a challenge. And that's why I'd say SPLM and SPLM-IO, both of them, fail to respect the lives of our own citizens that are suffering of the dirty politics in the IDP scam. So that's one thing I'd like to say. But at least IO have got the space in Malakal, because you can see, if you play the blue colors, you can see the blue colors are there. But of course, these are also people which will have military wings that confront themselves. But the question comes, will SPLM and SPLM-IO sustain these colors that they have shown us today? Wow, red, Malakal, blue. Will they come together to Juba and enjoy red and blue in Juba? That's the question. Will our law enforcement agencies, national security services, believe that both colors need to be treated equally without any form of discrimination? You don't need to control this and detain them and restrict approval of this. They deserve all equal protection. Will us as citizens respect them with their colors without throwing them bottles or anything if they're coming somewhere, like what happened in Fangat, where you throw to them dead bodies? So for me, these are all things that political maturity is required. And now our political ideology is undergoing test. It's undergoing test because we have been fighting Khartoum, and then we say we'll be able to govern ourselves. So time is now for us to prove to Khartoum that politically we are matured and we can embrace democracy. So I do agree with you. Both of them fail in respecting the lives of our innocent citizens in Malakal IDP scam, and which is the consequences of their own disagreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. My last question, so that I can give people in Clubhouse a chance to weigh in. My last question: why did the first Vice President, Dr. Yang Mashar, send Madam Jelena to Malakal instead of them going? Are the rumors that people have been saying he went to Juba, that Dr. Yang Mashar is in house arrest? Is that true? That's the reason why he cannot travel to Malakal to do the same thing? Like, say, that should be the big political event ever, if he went there in Malakal and President Salva Kiir went to Wow. So why didn't go instead of sending Madam Jelena to Malakal? That would be my last question. Then I will give the chance to people in Clubhouse.
You know, to be honest with you, I gave myself time to investigate. And if you see this scenario end up Malakal being blue and Wow being red, it started since last year, prior December. There's supposed to be a joint visit of His Excellency President and First Vice President to Wow. I don't know if you remember, it was being published in the social media that both of them are supposed to go to Wow. That has been dodged for almost 1 year. The visit couldn't happen. Now we get this visit of President 2 of Baragaza region. He didn't win. So I gave myself to investigate if whether really His Excellency Vice President is under house arrest or is not under house arrest. And then so I investigate whether he want to be in-house to show the nation is under house arrest without being intended being hand-house. I don't know. I couldn't get a genuine answer there. But I feel if I'm supposed to be an advisor of His Excellency First Vice President, let him test the law the same way Angelina tested by going to Malakal. I wish him to move. Even I've been advocating that His Excellency President is supposed to go together with his Vice President to Wow, to show solidarity, because it's not an SPLM in Wow, it's an SPLM in Baragazal. Even the presence of First Vice President Dr. Yang Mashar with the President in an SPLM event in Baragazal could have sent a very big reconciliation signal. And remember, President have declared year 2023 to be a year of peace, reconciliation, and development in his close of year speech of 2022. So the question comes is, when will His Excellency First Vice President tell the nation, I attempted to travel, but I was blocked? Because that's what we're waiting for. That's what we're waiting for. And for me, so this is a question I'm throwing to the SPLM-IO. We want to see him going to the airport and attempting to board the plane to go to one of the towns, and he will tell, no, don't go. That would have been because there's this sort of like a silent house arrest But I feel my call that goes to SPLM-IO, let His Excellency First Vice President show the nation that I'm attempting to travel and I went to the airport, or I'm trying to get out of my compound, going to the airport, I'm going to board flight, and I've declared that I'm going to go to this town, and I've done all the necessary arrangement. I'm going to that town, and I'm going to board the flight that takes me to that town, and I'm been blocked. That could have been really a proper proof to the nation. So I think time has come. Time has come for His Excellency First Vice President to test the waters, because as I say, you can't understand the law until you put the law into test. So I think this law of restrictions of house arrest need to be tested. So for me, that's one thing. And if there's a really elements that keep him to remain under house arrest, I would like to say they're doing huge damage to His Excellency President. Allowing His Excellency First Vice President, who is a principal of a principal party as a peace partner, not travel, is a huge international damage on His Excellency President's image. And even a damage for the SPLM. You can cry, you can shout, but there's some spaces, your head will be down because you'll be questioned. You are saying justice, prosperity in your slogan, but you're acting opposite. So I think for me, is a time for His Excellency First Vice President also to show us that he is ready to test the law. Because if you don't test the law, then we can't understand whether the law is functional or not functional. Whether rights have been respected or rights have not been respected, whether freedoms have been honored or not been honored. So test it, test the law, test the rights, test the freedoms, so that we have evidence of argument that yes, you attempt to test it, and it's proven that you are denied from enjoying the privilege of the law in terms of equal treatment by the law or before the law, or respect of human rights or freedoms that you tested, and we see evidence that you're not being allowed to enjoy the privilege of testing those laws. So for me, that's my message to SPLM-IO, but at the same time also is my message to the SPLM that show the nation that reacts not under detention. And another thing goes back to His Excellency President, that next time if he's moving, as he declare reconciliation, let him at least help in moving together with Dr. Riak, say, let's go. Or come public, say, I want us to go with Dr. Riak, whether to either strong SPLM-IO stronghold or to IG, SPLM-IG stronghold, so that we saw the declaration of 2023 to be a year of peace, reconciliation, and development, because we can't eat statements, but we can enjoy evidence of action that proves some statements that were declared. But when statements are declared without action that establish evidence and indicator, we can't prove that those statements are correct. So these are my messages that I would like to convey. But of course, I can't really avoid this space by using this particular platform to call for the release of the young political detainees. We have Maurice Mabior, who was kidnapped from Nairobi for his political activism. And we have Jacob Thon, who was locked from Juba Regency because of his political activism. Detaining young politicians is a very bad political message to the country. And this goes to your audience who might have link with those who have the authority of detaining these two young politicians. Let them be released. Free young politicians. Democracy cannot be bitter if you allow it to be exercised. Democracy is bitter when you restrict it from being exercised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmund. You are absolutely correct, because these political young leaders, they should not be arrested in first place, because these people that practice their own freedom of speech, and they are not violent. If the security origin in the country arresting the political leaders, they should arrest those people who are carrying arms, those people who are killing people on the street or on the road. So those are the people they should go after, instead of people who are practicing their political will. And also, too, yes, I agree with you on President Salva Kiir Mayardit and Riek Machar to go out together for public campaign, so that they say, here we are, here is both sides, side by side, President this side and Dr. Riek Machar this side, here we are. They can tour all across the state, plus 3 administrative, so that they can campaign for a peace among all across the country. Because South Sudan right now, at this moment, we are divided. We are divided. But before the election of 2024, these two leaders, Dr. Riek Machar and President Salva Kiir, they should go together, campaign across the state, so that they can, these people tell the people of South Sudan that the time for peace, reconciliation is here. We are here. We no more war, no more violence. So let us do it, and that will put everything to rest. But if Dr. Yangmecha will remain in the house, President Salva Kiir will across the state, or President Dr. Yang can send his delegate to any state to open, and he's not there, there's something wrong, and the country will not move forward. They are hosting people of South Sudan as a whole, and the country hostage. So for this, if the peace, they say we are on peace, South Sudan, we are peace. Peace can be, if they show the people of South Sudan what kind of peace they are doing by President Salva Kiir and the Fed by President Yangmecha to go together. So that is the message for these two leaders. So thank you very much. Let me move to Clubhouse. Let me welcome the next speaker, my co-host Motoli. You are here. Let me move the General Kates, Dr. Dwalajan and Madam Alena and Comrade Tapiel. Welcome to this program. So I will give each of you 2 to 3 minutes to ask your question. So this is not just come and talk. So this is just question. If you have a question to ask my guest, Idmoni Akani, you are welcome 2 minutes to have your question. So the next person is General Kates. General Kates, if you can hear me, so ask your question, please. Thank you. 2 minutes.
Yeah, much first, thank you, Madid, and the rest of South Sudanese, both in the studio and down there. You are limiting us. I would like to comment on some of the issues aired out by these SPLM-IG journalists in Juba. My question to him is this. Is President Salva Kiir went to
can you correct that? Who is SPLM-IG journalist in Juba?
That guy is an SPLM-IO journalist, SPLM-IG journalist in Juba, right?
No, he's not a journalist.
Okay, but based on his tones, is leaning toward the SPLM-IG. Yeah. But anyway, let me ask a question if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question to him is this: the visit of the President Salva Kiir to WOW, is that because of the threat that the SPLM-IO were taking over the towns? And then we were threatened. The beautiful Sarah Valens, the governor of the state was threatened, and the members of the SPLM-IO were threatened for their campaign. Because we were gaining a lot of people in the state, and the state was getting blue. Is that President visit because of this threat or what? And I yield back mic to you.
So should I go ahead and answer him?
Yes, go ahead and answer him. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is called, guys. First, I respect you with your opinion, but also I respect you by leveling. I wish you could have been somebody who I've interacted with, and so that you can know who I am. I don't think that I'm lean to SPLM-IG. And I would like to assure to you, when members of SPLM-IO were arrested in Northern Baragazal, which is less than 2 weeks ago, I remember that the defector of SPLM who joined SPLM-IO, when I was campaigning for their release, your counterpart SPLM were leveling me as SPLM-IO. So today I'm hearing from you, you're leveling me, I'm SPLM-IG. I don't know what exactly qualifies to that leveling, because I have received the same leveling from your counterparts, calling me that I failed to rear the blue public, but I'm a blue color. So I'd like to tell you that I've been facing these particular challenges. But to introduce myself to you, I'm Edmond Yakan, an activist. I stand on my principle of activism without embracing any fear or favor, without embracing any ethnicity, without embracing any ideology that undermine the coming of South Sudanese together as nationalists. That's who I am before I respond to your question. So please be responsible enough before you level, know the background of the person you're interacting with, because it's a part of respect of democracy and opinion of expression. I respect your opinion. But let me answer you. Yes, I'm someone who has been closely documenting incidences against the SPLM-IO events. I don't know if you have been with us right from the beginning. I told you very clear when I was making my statement that actually the region of Baragazal has been hostile to SPLM-IO. Why? Because I have my own primary hand evidence of more than 2 events of SPLM-IO have been closed in Northern Barghazal. In Warab, they have been beaten when they wear the uniform. And in WOW, they've been throwing bottles, and I've documented that. And we have written that as an organization publicly. And that is where one time your counterpart, the SPLM, was saying, I'm a blue ally, I'm not a red ally. But today you have your opinion to level me as a red ally, as I said in the beginning. I think there's 2 things that I'd like to provide you as an answer. I think the big challenge that made His Excellency President to have the Barghazal SPLM region event, yes, there's this element that you have mentioned, like the threat of the SPLM-IO, but I think it is the fear of, if the region of Barghazal remains silent for endorsing His Excellency President as a chairperson of the SPLM, as a flag bearer for presidency in the region of Barghazal, there's a likelihood that actually within SPLM, some cadres may merge and put themselves as SPLM candidates for the electable position of the presidency in the region of Barghazal. That is one of the potential moves, because I try to do my own investigation. It seems internally there's also a fear within the SPLM that if we don't endorse His Excellency President as a flag bearer for the presidency right now from Barghazal, maybe another figure may emerge out of Barghazal within the SPLM. For example, the threat of when the endorsement of SPLM candidate for governorship become a threat is actually in the region of Barghazal that led president to issue an SPLM order of suspending the nomination of candidates for presidency. So that's one factor that I'd like to tell, that in my analysis, I've moved the president to mobilize the 3 governors, which are SPLM, plus the governor of the SPLM-IO, which is a regulator, to come to work to endorse him, and is endorsed. As I mentioned in the beginning, is that endorsement is contradicting to the order he issued less than 2 days ago, where I say as SPLM as a chair, he stopped the endorsement of SPLM members into any electable position, but today he's been endorsed as an electable member, which is contradicting to his own order, I'd like to say. So I'd like to say, I don't have any political color, but I take my responsibility to the existing laws that no any voice in South Sudan can silence me to exercise my constitutional civic responsibility in pursuing what I feel as the best interest of the citizens. We may clash in political ideology, but please, sorry, unfortunately, I'm not an IG journalist based in Juba. I'm neither an SPLM-IO ally. I'm an activist, and I stand on the ground of the activism. So with due respect and honor to your opinion, leveling without taking time to learn is a bit of a challenge to culture of embracing democracy, but it's still within the freedom of expression, the freedom of opinion, and free speech. I respect your opinion there. I'm not harsh. I'm not so much disturbed. I feel you have all freedoms as a human being, constitutional, to exercise your freedom of expression. I welcome it, but I clarify who I am, and my response to answer is that actually SPLM have its internal crisis that they have to clear it by endorsing the president. But also, as you said, the region of Barghazal is gaining the SPLM. And that's what I'm saying. If you remember, in my conclusion, I was saying, if president left, wow, and if SPLM-IO are not enjoying the same space they enjoy now, if there's any move against SPLM-IO members in terms of freedom of expression, assembly, association, rallies, if there's anything move negative, it's not going to be a plus for SPLM-IG. It's going to be a negative, while it's going to be a plus for SPLM-IO, because it become an instrument of mobilization. And I remember I made this very clear in my conclusion. I hope you have been following me right from the beginning of this talk show. But with your due respect and honor, I hope that I provide for you an answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Edmu Yakani. Also, to introduce you, this person's name, his real name is Jabril Kwano. He's one of diehard SPLM-IO. So thank you, Jabril. Let me move to the next. The next person, 2 minutes, is Dr. Dwaladjan. Also, let you give you a head up. Dr. Dwaladjan, if you before you have your question, please introduce yourself, and then so that my guests can know who you are. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madit. This is I am Dr. Dwaladjan, the leader of the Union Party of South Sudan, Union Forces of South Sudan. And I'm really very glad to talk about these 2 issues that you have put here. But first of all, since it's time for asking questions, as a civil society leader, I have like maybe 3-4 questions to ask, and then you can answer them, and then I will talk later when the show is open for talk. My first question is, we have observed from social media and that there are so many civilians are fleeing out the town of Wau, and they are heading to Tumboro, the city of Maridi, Yambio, and they are heading toward Uganda. And they are living in a big number. And I don't know if this could come as a result of the threat from the deputy governor that if you don't wear a red t-shirt, and then you will face serious consequences before the arrival of Salva Kiir in Wau. Could that actually displacement of the civilian or a threat, a result of the statement, or what do you think is the cause of the new movement of the civilian to Uganda? That is one. Second, we have observed some incident, particularly the states that are really controlled by the opposition governors. That is the state of Malakal, the state of Western Barkazal, and the state of Western Equatoria. We see that there have been incidents, particularly to the civilian and to the state itself, a lot of insecurity, and governors seem like they don't talk, even MPs, they don't talk nothing. Even we are not hearing anything from those government officials. Do you have, why do you think they are keeping quiet and they say they are representing the people? Third, my third question, it looked like actually I think somebody has about Riek Machar, and we have seen, in any opening, official opening of an office, usually the leader of a party go and cut something like a rope, and then they enter to officiate the issue. But we see Riek Machar did not go to Malakal. Do you think is as a result of personal fear of his security, or he actually wanted to endorse his wife as a potential candidate of the opposition? The other thing is that actually it looked like we are having a lot of issues here that are not clear in our country. You see, these states that are really controlled by opposition, we are seeing insecurity, level of insecurity very high, people dying. Do you think it's likely that there will be war in this state before the election? I will be clear. The other thing is, my other question is, we in the Union Party, we have developed a very sophisticated program to run election without being rigged and without having a control from
the state.
From the state. The other opposition are not seeing this as a approach to solve the problem of election. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dolajan. You might correct your.
Yeah, thank you. Doctor, when he was speaking, I put the video purposely for your audience. I don't know whether he's watching a video because in the class you can't see. And if you see the video, I was making a phone call. This phone call I'm making because I want to justify a primary evidence from my own source. I have my focal coordinator, and I have a team of 15 observers as right now we speak in Wau Town. They're headed by our field coordinator called Stephen Robo, who is heading SEPO office in Wau and is for the region of Baragazal. We deploy 15 observers to Wau to observe. Right now, I was calling him. Is there a big number of citizens fleeing the town, going to Tombra, going to Meridi? I want to get from his primary hand. He said this information is not correct. So I'd like to prove you. And if you wish that my answer is wrong, I can connect him directly with him. He is not a partisan. He is not somewhere. And the people are deployed is not from that region. Because we have to watch, because there may be incidents that are not publicly published. But as a domestic observer mission, as a civil society, we need a primary hand. So I would like to assure you that from my reliable sources, as we speak with you, You see me in the video, I was making a call. I was confirming from WOW whether a big number of registered, because until the day today, what I know is that citizens feel frightened, but fleeing in big number to Tombra, to Meridi. And by the way, my brother, these towns, if you to look at a distance for citizens to decide to adapt, I'm leaving WOW, I'm going to Tombra, which is over 50 miles out of WOW. I'm leaving WOW, I'm going to Meridi, which is a very far distance. It's terrible that this is going to be. So, and this is where sometimes I'd like to be honest with you as a political figure. Let us be keen on social media, misinformation and disinformation and fake news that are moving on. Yes, the sense of citizens feel frightened, specifically yesterday when there's a big arrival of protection force of the president. In the town, the market pulled closer because, you know, we have still the hangover of the war. When you see uniform in big number, people feel frightened. So this is what I like to say, that I don't know the source of the social media that I have, and I'll be really, really honest. If you can share with me the links to social media so that I can investigate that and provide you credible answer. Because for me, I like to be genuine and factual in responding to things. So I like to say these rumors of big numbers, as you see me in the video, I was making a call to my observers on the ground. As a speaker, I have 16 domestic observers, not sons of Baragazal, on the ground, observing, watching, following hotels, checking what type of incidents are happening, and we'll provide, if my brother Lex Media allow, maybe after 3 days, we'll provide our own observation finding of what we have seen on the ground and what has happened for those who may need to get information. That's one thing I'd like to make it forward. But in terms of that, citizens feel frightened with the presence of big number into uniform. That's an honest one. Because why? There's a still hangover of the violence we have. And remember, the crisis in the country normally start with the political events like that. And sometimes also some members of law enforcement agents like take advantage of such incidents and frighten citizens, loot, and grab whatever citizens have. So citizens feel frightened in that environment. But to the level of fleeing the town and running as what we call forceful IDPs because of the president, I would like to assure you right now, I confirm with my team on the ground, with my team of the observers, they say, no, that information is not correct. That's what they go. And I trust my reliable source. But I will be really happy if you can share with me those links so that I can prove, investigate with our system, and come back and share with you whether that is factual or not factual. That's what I'm trying to say. Coming to the state governed by opposition, your question hold water, and I would like to answer your question with practical evidence into this issue. For instance, go to Western Equatoria, which is an IO state. Personally, I've been close for the last almost 6 to 7 months in Tombra. You know, there's a crisis in Tombra between militia groups that are aided by the principal parties. You have one person called Angelo Davido, who is fighting on behalf of an ethnic group of Balanda, versus James Nando, who is accused of being fighting on behalf of the Zande. There's that clash in Tombra. And until now, it's not yet sorted out maximum. And until now, there's a tension between the governor and the deputy governor in Western Equatoria. That's a state headed by opposition and deputized by SPLM. That's one, like, I'll give an example there. Let's go to Western Bahragazal. Before the current deputy governor, Joseph Zakaria, the former deputy governor, they're not in good relation with the governor, Sarakleto. And there's a tension so much in war. And as you speak now, Bagari is completely an isolated area because there's also pockets of violence there. That's an opposition state. But there's one state which is not also opposition that I'd like to bring to your attention, that there's a tension going on. Before Aleu leave Warap, there's a tension over between Aleu as an IG and SPLM-IO there. Before Ring took over the state of Lex, there was a tension between the former governor Lex, Ring changed to the deputy governor. And even I remember we went to the state to do an event there. I arrived late, but my colleague, Dr. Abraham from Juba University, when he went, it took him 2 days to reconcile the governor and the deputy governor, and that's before Ring became a governor, over allocation of seats of director generals. Like they said, the power ratio of 55% and 57% is applied even for distribution of ministries. That raised real attention. And the event was supposed to go for 2 days. It had to take 2 days reconciliation between the governor and deputy governor, the current deputy governor and the previous governor of Lake State, which now Ring went and Ring harmonized that. You go to Jongole, it has its historical evidence between the ethnic group, which is either Nuer versus Murle or Dinka versus Murle, or an alliance of Nuer and Dinka versus Murle. This is there before Denai became a governor, even during the time of Philip Aguirre when he was a governor of Jongole. Those are the pockets. I would like to assure you that there's an attempt of use of ethnicity, and even this is the same situation in Malakal. There are some politicians who are profiteers of violence. They want to use ethnicity as a political power of divide and rule. This applied in the scenario of Tombora. This applied now in the scenario of Malakal, as you have seen what's going on in Malakal. This applied in scenario of some tensions in some states like Northern Baragazal and Warab, and even some part of state like Eastern Equatoria. This has been used there. These are evidence. Now, relating these to your question towards elections, and that's why we have said in our domestic observation, and if you can wish to access my contacts or I can access your contacts, I can share with you our monthly domestic observation. Our last 2 monthly domestic observation findings towards elections shows us that we're going to witness more deadly violence related to electoral process at states level compared to national or local government level. Why? Because politics at states level is more of ethnic divides. And I'll tell you one of our domestic observation, what I don't know it is what I'm going to say is true or not, is where we have recommended for the parties to stop premature electoral campaign if the law is not in existence, if the commission is not in existence, because we have already seen violence merging because of the campaigns at the states level. And this I want to answer what you say, that actually there's a likelihood of us having violence at state level as elections are looming. That's true. What you say is correct in your question. Your assumption is correct. I'll tell you, because your assumption is backed up with the scientific evidence that we have. And that's why president have to sort of like think about whether to stop SPLM endorsement. I'll give you the state I'm speaking from, is Central Equatorial State. When Honorable Governor Emmanuel Adil want to contest as a flag bearer of SPLM for the seat of Central Equatorial State governorship as an SPLM state, one ethnic group say, we are not going to endorse you among the ethnic groups of the state. We're not going to. And this become a common across the states. In Western Baragazal, even the deputy governor have to have problem internally with the party, and not only him alone, across the country. And that's why President sense like, oh, violence is breaking even before elections are officially declared by a constitutional mandate body like National Election Commission, who is supposed to declare campaigns. We're not supposed to go for premature campaigns legally if we're to follow electoral ethics and electoral standards in terms of legal framework and engagement. That's what I would like to say, that yes, these states we're likely going to have. And which states are likely from our assessment? These are the following states likely we're going to have violence in it: Western Equatoria, Upper Nile, Unity State, and please get me clear, we keep on updating our data. There's a shift of also the numbers increasing. Central Equatoria, because the seat, if there's any strong opposition, there's a likelihood, not in town, but outside town and in some periphery of the state, that's likelihood. But also we have a high tendency of Eastern Equatoria. So these are 5 states we see them, that likely violence may occur. And does not mean that the other states there's no violence, but these are violence of high level that we're seeing is like to happen per our domestic observation. And that's why we've been sending signals as civil society that, look here, political parties take political responsibility to ensure you're working towards, like what you described, credible, free and fair elections. What does that mean? And this comes to me to answer your next question of that by saying, as a political party, you are standing on the principle that you need to have elections, that there will be no any interference from any either of the state organs to entertain or to facilitate rigging. And from our experience as civil society, learning from the lessons we have learned from countries close to us like Kenya, in electoral process, actually rigging of election does not start the day we're going to vote. Rigging of election start right from the pre-electoral stage. What events that at the pre-electoral stage may offer a chance of rigging? 1, threatening politicians, denying them freedom of expression. You have seen with the recent Ugandan elections. Creating parties that to divide numbers at last minute, you swap them to your side. Creating more parties towards elections, and in advance preparing them to go to cut down numbers of your opponents that you see. Denial of state support, where one party will take advantage of state support and use state apparatus to create their electoral influence and infrastructure in advance. All those processes. And that's why as a civil society, we've been saying, if we want to have credible and peaceful election in this country, we don't want to see any form of political discriminations against any political establishment. And that goes to the concept I've said about rigging. And that's what I'm saying, please have the legal framework in place in terms of like having The National Election Law is there, the Political Parties Act is there, and put up the Political Parties Council to register the political parties without any form of discrimination, without any preconditions that are very tough. If the preconditions should be applied to all parties equally, and please allow the Electoral Commission to have its observers without any interference. Make sure, like today, I've been sharing, my brother, we have seen Chief Justice in wow. People are start questioning the neutrality and the objectivity of judiciary if elections comes. And remember, with the question of 28 states, those are all questions related to judiciary when it comes to disputes management. So when you start having people like Chief Justice are there. So all these are things related to the concept of having a free, because these praises of credible, free, and fair, and non-violent does not start on the voting day. It starts prior to the voting day, actually sometimes 1 year ahead of the elections calendar before it comes. So this particular time determines to you the credibility of the elections if the Electoral Commission is going to declare the way how the state and the government behave in creating political playground that is either equal to all political players or discriminate with certain political players, or creating fake political players to occupy a space that at last minute you will lure them to your side. And one of the things that I'd like to share, my brother Abraham, it was a joke. I have a very close friend of mine from northern Uganda. He's called Robert Mao. Robert Mao is an opposition when Museveni was contesting. He have a green color, he have his party. And Robert Mao one day gave just a very simple exercise that I'd like to share with the audience. Robert Mao was saying one person one time was given an opportunity to go to decide his destiny after life. So he was in a lifter. He was asked, choose. There's two things in the world, heaven or hell. So he's given a lifter. The first tour he went to hell. When he went to hell, he find there's no devil. People are good drinking, marrying, enjoying. Everybody's on suit, ties, and all these. Then he saw hell, he came back. Then he said, okay, go to the next side, the heaven. He went to heaven, he find God is presiding, everything is prayer, discipline. He looks at no, but they, you guys, these Muslims, imams, and the bishops on the ground shouting, Shaitan, Shaitan. There's no Shaitan there. What I've seen, there's no hell here. Those guys are very happy, friendly, playing dominoes, pool, enjoying drinking beers, and they're enticed. So when you ask, okay, decide, the angel told him, decide. You are going to jump to a lifter that this time you are going forever. So he decided to go to hell because the hell he saw is a very good hell, very nice. Here, God is controlling things, prayer, and all these things. So when he reached to hell, he found out the real Satan now in his full attire. Then he asked Satan, like, hey, I was here some hours ago, and this place was very good. Why is it now dirty? People are eating rubbish. Some people have been whipped, and then you look dirty and all this. Do you remember me? Then the son told the person of my friend, what do you want to tell me anyway? And the person said, but I was here, things were good. Satan says, sorry. When you came that time, actually, we are in our campaign. So because Satan wants to mobilize numbers, he's not really Satan. He's a good one than God in his heaven, in the hell. So that's how rigging of election is done. That in the campaign, some people claim to be good, but at last minute, you're going to see them, they're going to be the worst. So, and that's why I agree with him that when we want to talk about free, fair, and credible elections, we should not start from the day of the voting or the day of declaring candidature or submitting application candidature. Is actually 1 year before that time. And that's why right now is a proper moment to observe the creation of electoral environment that meets those standards. That's what I'd like to answer you that, yes, you are asking me why other opposition are silenced. You know, Abraham, I had a debate with academians some 2 days ago. We are arguing whether our permanent constitution should be endorsed by appointed MPs or elected MPs, because it's a question of challenging the rationale of the brain in terms of thinking, offering a political academic question whether we want a permanent constitution through the current appointed MPs or we need elected MPs to come and deal with our constitution. So there's a swapping of opinion. Many people are saying, no, these appointed MPs or the peace agreement, we don't trust them because they have tested the sweetness of being in politics. If the constitution to be rough, they will not endorse. So you better wait for our elected MPs. So we say now, will that mean that constitution will not remain as a prerequisite for the conduct of the election because the appointed MPs can be manipulated not to bring to us a constitution that we want? People say, yes, we better elect that, we will hold them accountable. So this tells you the opposition we have, some of them have already tested the AC of the V8. Compromising to lose the AC of the V8 at the current moment is very critical. And even this one is affecting unification of forces because some of the MPs are now ministers. Some of the generals are now ministers. And you tell them, you leave the ministry, go to the cantonment site or assembling site because you want to be redeployed. They say, my friend, are you idiot? The V8 here is more sweeter than going back to the military training ground to be again reoriented and redeployed. So, and they're messing up the delay of, so the delaying factor of the redeployment is not only linked with the concern between Salva and Riek, it's also have linked with some of the generals, so now ministers and MPs, and they fear to go to the training grounds in order to be redeployed. That's another mess. So I'd like to tell you, some of the opposition are going to remain silent as long as they get an agreement that my brother support me silently. I was asking some people that, some political parties, their members are few in number. Some of them say, no, we have members in Seoul. If I can be allowed, with due respect or not. And I'm not using them for bad purpose. I'm just using them for a good example. I was talking to one member of FD. I said, but the FDs, you have few. We have seated too many. Say, no, we have people who are detained in Seoul. They're not detained physical like us, but they're detained in Seoul. So we have detainees in Seoul that can come and occupy this space at the last minute. So some of the political oppositions are not going to challenge the status quo. Because if they reach concern the status quo, that anyway, politics is just with that seat, it's not a politics. So some politicians believe that if I lose the chair of being an MP, being commissioner, minister, I'm not a politician. So they will entertain to remain quiet. So my brother, you have the responsibility to test your ideology by facing the reality and telling the rest that, I face the reality, learn from my lessons. And I think that's my answer to your question in terms of the opposition. In terms of internal affairs of the IO, honestly, I don't want to answer so much whether His Excellency First Vice President want to endorse the wife as a flag bearer for the party. That is still a premature decision that I can't make it. But let us see, let the law come, let the Electoral Commission come, and let the Electoral Commission declare candidature. That is where we will see the reality on the table when they're facing the application of the law as elections is concerned. So that's my response to you, my brother, with due respect and honor. And I hope we can continue interacting. As you said, I'm ready to your audience to share my contacts, and I'm ready to share with them my reports that I'm generating. Because for me, dialogue makes us to learn. There's nobody who say I'm perfect in terms of knowledge. But when we continue conversation and dialogue, we learn and we educate, and we even correct our own mistakes that we might have as a person. There's nobody who say I am perfect, I don't have mistakes. I may have mistakes, but through dialogue, I may learn my mistakes and I might correct my mistakes and I may gain from your argument that may inform me to become well-informed person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edmond. The next is Abilkon. Abilkon, you can go ahead and open your mic, introduce yourself, and let us reduce your question to at least 2 questions at least. Abilkon, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Edmund, for the analysis of this campaign. My question to you is it SPLM-IO repeating the same scenario that happened in 2010 before the election, or is it 2012 when the SPLM, despite the regionalization of the politics in South Sudan, by seeing President Kiir, 2013, political regionalization of the politics in South Sudan, is it good for our unity of people of South Sudan to see President Kiir, especially in the region of Greater Barkazal, campaigning prematurely, as you said, before the reconstitution of those keys, important institutions that would allow other political parties like myself to be able to campaign? Is that not breaking the law? This is my question to you.
Thank you, Wilson. Abilami, go ahead.
So, should I answer?
Yes, go ahead, answer him. Yeah.
I think my answer, my answer to your question is straightforward. It's breaking of the law. That's one thing, and at 2 levels. One level, at a legal framework of the country, the electoral law is not yet in place, and the Electoral Commission is not yet in place, which is constitutional mandated to do that. Secondly, internal order of the party. As a chair saying, I'm stopping endorsement of any candidature, but now he went for an endorsement. So that's another internal undermining of an order that is issued by the chair. That's one thing. But the reputation will come if His Excellency President, as the chair of SPLM, fail to tour the other regions. That's one thing. Secondly, also, if that particular freedom is not allowed to any other political player to do the same. The question is, minus SPLM and SPLM-IO, can another political party be allowed also to run regional events like that without any form of restriction and political discrimination? If that happens, that's the spirit of democracy that we have been calling for. But if that does not happen, then that's undermining of democracy, and that is what we call a discriminative and selective way of defining what democracy is. Because democracy is supposed to be defined by a discriminative or selective attitude. Everybody's supposed to enjoy. Then when everybody enjoy, in the conclusion, we say democracy has been exercised. But even how few or how little or how small another party is, if you can come with your thousands for the region, and I can't come with my tens in the regional events, democracy has not been respected. So that's what I like to say is that there. But the risk is that, of course, if you look at 2013 exercise, so the risk is whether that endorsement is going to be a unanimous endorsement, because maybe it is a new model that if we bring them all together as a national space, we may repeat 2013. Now let us take a strategy of segmenting it at regional level so that we avoid that room of Nyakron of 2013 where we bring all of them as a one entity, a national identity. Maybe regionalism may be a new strategy. Those are all political calculations as political scientists or as political science speaks, that maybe the approach of getting endorsement at the regional level is much more softer than having everybody in the room, because if everybody in the room, numbers can be mobilized in that room, numbers can challenge, numbers can speak. So let's avoid that by going to this level and look as they will run throughout. So that's what we're going to go. But of course, the attached to this question is like the question of respond. Will the freedom be allowed for a person like you with a different political color? And even one of the things I'm trying to raise yesterday in a talk show in Miraya Radio is whether the political parties that were recently established, they're neither parties to the revitalized agreement, neither their party to the group of the whole out groups, but they are political establishments who say, I don't want to belong to any idea of this group, but we are coming as a political party. Can the political party council endorse them? And I was challenging the registrar of the political party council. I said, look here, you better come out public. Even if you're not reconstituted, don't remain silent. Come out public that you will take responsibility to accredit any political establishment. Because if you're doing something prematurely against the law, let us have another also premature endorsement of political establishments. So as a political party council registrar, go public and say, all persons who want to assemble, associate, and form a party is allowed, and we as a council, we can attend. The good thing that I like with the registrar is that in the other political party, like the National Patriotic Party is a newly established, less than a month in terms of officially. There have not been interference with their space. I've seen it. Also, maybe they have a background backup. That one I never know. We know that when they come with a true color in the political playing field, that's what is it. But will that be allowed for other political parties to do? So if we don't have that space for everybody, then democracy is under question. But if you have that space open to everybody, then we. So for me, one of the biggest challenge, if I'm asked, His Excellency President, after return from WOW, he must reconsider political parties council and allow political parties to register as equal as the way how SPLM and SPLM-IO and other political parties that are allies of whether SPLM or SPLM-IO register without any form of discrimination, without any form of selection. Then that is democracy is in place. But otherwise, the fear within the primaries of the parties is been demonstrated already with these regional events. So, and primary are supposed to be observed by the National Electoral Commission or even with domestic observers like us. Because the question comes is that, Abraham, just give me a minute, less than a minute, seconds. If we want to exercise democracy, the traditional notion where I want to check democracy when political parties assume government is a traditional norm. These days, if we want to check democracy, we check within the internal democracy of the party. How the party, before assuming state power or government, internally, are they practicing democracy? Are they transparent? Are they having freedom of expression among their members? Because this question why we're going for elections without checking the party's internal democracy, it is a mess. وفي بيته حرامي سلمت له الدولة بكون حرامي للدولة. So a party that is undemocratic internally cannot assume to be democratic in running the state. So if we cannot observe primaries per the law, because so we need to observe primaries as defined by the law. So for me, these are some of the challenges that I use that word premature to qualify these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilimon, and thank you, Abiel, for your short question. The next speaker is if you can hear my voice, you can open your mic and ask your question. 1 to 2, please.
All right, thank you. You hear my voice?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I want to add 2 questions to him and Khalid. I have my question is, I see hate campaign between IO and IG. And one is started in Unku, and one is started in Unity Trade Twitch. This is they started a campaign of violence or IO or
I like that. I like that.
What is I say that is.
So that is a question. Should I go ahead with the answer?
Well, that's your question. Well,
that is my question. That's my question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. You know, we are establishing our evidence on that incident because that incident of Unkur County in Ruang administrative area, by the way, by nature, is a massive atrocities incident, by the way. And that's why we're calling for independent institutions like CITISAM to rush, investigate, and get it. But I feel that's a demonstration of legitimizing presence in areas that by then have not witnessed violence. And we're investigating whether that is an electoral-related violence. Because a violation of ceasefire, by the way, is a clear violation of ceasefire. And why is it happening in that particular location at this particular time when we're turning Malakal blue and we're turning WOW red? What are linkages? And we're investigating that. And I like really, like what I told the first caller when he asked me about my identity and the rest, and even the second caller talk about the influx of citizens, when I'm saying, if I've been allowed after 3 days, I may come back and with my investigation. But that's an incident that we condemn, and we feel it might have an element of electoral-related violence or showing of strength, violent strength towards elections, which we don't like it because it happened in Ruang, and it's really taken us by shock to see how massive the atrocities happen. That is one. And not only that, there's other incidents that has happened in line of today. As we speak now, outside Juba town, in a place called close to Jebel Lado, there was a 2 days consistent confrontation between SSPDF and a Mundari cattle camp. Women were run to the bush, children were in the bush, cattle were looted by the soldiers, and the cattle have been sold at a cheaper price in the town. And today I've been a bit harder on the CDF. I say, like, why should the army go and attack Mundari cattle camp in the face of president jubilating with some members of the country in WOW? Why some people in WOW jubilating, and here close to Juba, the seat of the government, there's a cattle camp under attack with soldiers. And I'm receiving phone calls coming from there, and I strongly condemn it. That's a very bad practice that you can't allow that to happen. So there are pockets of incidents happening in country while the events are happening in WOW. So are they those electoral related? So I would like to tell you that there's a merging culture. And this goes back to the importance of if we have unified forces. Some politicians want to show legitimacy by real investing on violence. And Malakal is a clear indicator. Malakal is a clear indicator. If we're to go for election, campaigns alone for nomination Malakal can trigger violence. It's a clear indicator. So for me, it's a question of political maturity among the political elites. So I would like to say we're investigating it, but we condemn the incident. We don't condone it. It's an incident also in the very strategic time that we are going to Malakal to make it blue. You're going to have to make it red. Before that, an incident happened in this particular location, and we have lost innocent lives of our own citizens whom among them might have been best politicians and best doctors and engineers and best nationalists that may enforce democracy in the country. But unfortunately, we have lost lives of our own citizens. For what purpose? As I said, we're investigating, but we feel violence is likely to happen if we're going to elections in some parts of the country where politicians like to use violence as a political ladder to power and for buying legitimacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. Let's move the next person online to ask his question. Ryong Deng, if you can hear my voice, open your mic and ask your question 1 to 2.
Okay, thank you, Madid. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yakani, for your time. And I really appreciate whatever you do. You're trying your best, and you're trying your best in the state. We know the situation of the country, but whatever you do, I think a lot of South Sudanese will appreciate it for getting information and availing them to the public. My question to you is, that is the kick-up of that campaign that was SPLM-IO made the campaign in WOW as a launching of the nomination of the president. Who is funding that the gathering, the launching? Is that the South Sudan government or the SPLM? Where the money coming from? Like it looked like there is the pocket of the government and pocket of SPLM. They become one, and we cannot have a free and fair election if the issue of the money and the funding is not being settled. My second question, you also alluded that some leaders, either in the state or in the national level, they operate on a tendency of violence. But isn't that the same thing as the state of the SPLM itself? It's not the system that operates on violent tendency to scare people and kill if it's required in order to govern. My last question also is, now in WOW, the Chief Justice was spotting also his campaigning with the president, was accompanying the president. And the governor of Warabi State stated that the president is going to win by 99.8%. I don't know why he left 2.2% out. Is that so? Is that already the outcome of election has been settled, and the Chief Justice is over there to maybe to swear in the president or whatever he is there, because the judiciary side of the government now has been pocket or been a part of executive, and we don't have any three branch as we know of. So, having said that, there is hunger now in the country, and people are inflexing. And the people we say now they're going to be voting in the constituency, tomorrow we will not find them because they will be displaced by hunger. So how are you going to make election while you didn't even provide the basic need or the food to the people who are going to be voters? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead, you can answer. Good question.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, with issue of resources is part of a really question. That's why we deploy observers on the ground, because we need to know how much have the t-shirt cost, how much money has been spent, what's the budget. Because also, let me tell you, we have Zacchaeus that will take advantage of the printing the t-shirts. They'll bring it with a different rate. If the rate is 5, they may make it 10 in order to earn money. If it's intended to be printed 5,000, they may print 3,000, they may walk away with 2,000. If the water is intended to be 10,000, they may only bring 5,000. We need to investigate all those. And where does the source comes from? That's one thing. Is the same thing also applied to Malakal, by the way? I have to be honest here. We're not only investigating money being used in WA, we also want to know how money is being used in Malakal, because we have to balance, we have to be non-partisan. We can't investigate one side and leave another side. So this is my message, is that is there. But the question of transparency in the use of public revenue versus respecting standard of electoral process is very important. And that's why, without having legal framework that give a legal mandate for some of citizens to investigate, that is a problematic. And that's what we say, when you go for elections without the law, there's a lot of dilemmas that you need to respond to, because we're supposed to start the campaign when the Electoral Commission have its all presence and its all deployment in terms of watching how much are the parties having in their pockets, and how much is somebody want to put their hands into the public pocket and pull money to use for party campaign. And in African context, where ruling party and the government distinction is not easier, is going to be problematic, because all African countries, ruling parties almost sometimes act as a government. You call it democratic, you call it what? The question is, how different is the endorsement of His Excellency President as a chair of the SPLM in the coming together of SPLM party in the region of Baragazal? How differently it was when Kagame manipulated the Rwandese by saying, Rwandans want me to run for another term, though the constitution say my term of office is finished. So I want Rwandese to decide it through referendum. Then he doctored the referendum, then he was endorsed. So the term limit was removed in the constitution because citizens see me, I'm best. It's not different. This is African politics that we can argue around it, but that's the notion we need to challenge in a constructive, non-violent manner, that we need to see democracy being exercised. So the question of funds is very critical, not only for this, even for what I said, like in Malakal, but also for other political parties. And that's why transparency for political parties to declare their source of revenue in financing electoral related activities is of importance to the credibility of the outcome of the elections. But in Africa, normally it's very hard to declare that. So I do agree with you asserting that. The statement of the governor of Warab is a political campaign, and we must tolerate political messages. It's any politician have a similar space, they'll make their own statement. Some will say 99 pass, some will say we are confident we're going to pass. You know, those are political messages that I feel that's a part of area that require us to have what we call political tolerance for political messaging. We're going to have those messaging all around. But of course, that's a political campaign. You expect political messaging to come, and you don't expect a player going to a football field and believe that it's going to be defeated. Even you can see players when they're warming up for the football field, some of them even jump more than the way you believe that they're going to win. But you can see they terrorize you, and it's the same thing, 99%, 90%, 80%, 50%, we're not going to fail, we're going to win, and here we're declaring that without any, these are political messages that, like I say, let's be tolerant for it. It's a campaign. You don't expect them to keep quiet or just watch. They have to issue their messages. So their messages, I'm saying. The only mistake is the presence of Chief Justice in that particular event. And that event have a huge attention. I don't know why the legal fraternity around the Chief Justice didn't tell him that that's a political event of one of the political party that compromised our neutrality and our non-partisanship. I wish somebody would have advised him on that, because this automatically give a weakness for the judiciary. If there's any electoral dispute, many people are going to use this as a reference. That yes, we know, already we predicted, because we have seen, we have witnessed, evidence, proof. So it's going to be terrible. So I don't know why the legal fraternity allowed Chief Justice really to be there, because otherwise he could have been in Malakal, he could have been in WA, he could have been someone and say, okay, I'm trying to give the legal, but lack of balance in political affiliations is a bit problematic. And of course, you remember 28 states debate with Dr. Malakal when he challenged the legal fraternity. But these are some of the things that I see them as a mistake. But of course, my message is that let us have the culture of tolerance And let us embrace political confrontation, but shouldn't be violent and should not claim life of any citizens or property of any citizens, and we should not be selective and discriminative if we are exercising our political rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Irmun. Our next person is Moindit. Moindit, if you can hear my voice, you can open your mic and ask your question. 1 to 2 questions, please. Moindit, are you there? So if you are not there, let me move. Matolit, I think you are the next. So my comrade, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to read some of the questions that are in the comment before I could ask my question. And there is a guy in the comment line. Actually, he's a Moindit. Moindit wrote a question in the comment line. And his question is that, what is your take about Equatorian in general? Will the Equatorian give the same support to the SPLM-I, to the SPLM party, just like the way it is in Greater Baragazal in WAU? So what is your take on that? That is my question. Somebody by name Gabriel Jongotai also got some 3 questions. His first question is, why are other political parties or groups not allowed by the SPLM-IG to exercise their political right? His second question is, why is it only SPLM-IG campaigning? The third question is, how will the election take place when there are important provisions in the peace agreement that are not actually implemented? His other question is, will the coming election be free and fair? And then the final question in the comment line is actually asked by somebody by name Deshwar. And he was actually...
where is your own question? Leave alone the comment.
I'm a moderator and I'm reading out the question in the comment line. Please hang on, Jibril. So his question is that, seeing you are independent, because before young Emmanuel, you have talked about being independent and you always collect data as an independent person. So he was asking that, seeing you are independent, what is going on in Ruling administrative area? I think he was referring to the incident of Unkur as well.
Unkur, yeah, Unkur incident.
My question, can I add in my question, or do you want to answer those questions?
Go ahead. Add. So that we give a chance to the others.
Okay. Yes, my question is that, since we know that election costs money, and we did not actually hear from the government or from IO where the budget is coming from. So who is funding this election? Recently, we hear that the United Nations were refusing, or the IMF, I think, were refusing to provide funds for the election. But it looks now the election is going to go on. Who is actually funding this election? And how much has been paid for this election now to go ahead?
Okay. Thank you, Matolit. Yeah, you can go ahead and answer those questions.
So can I answer this, and then we can pick other questions, because I saw somebody trying to raise a question, but he was asking for space to be given also for them for questions. So let me answer this quickly, so that's why I allow space to be there. One, I would like to say Equatoria and Upper Nile may not be as equal as Bahar Ghazal in terms of consensus. It may be divided. Why divided? Because of the ongoing pockets of violence. And the side of Equatoria, I have to be honest and sincere, the issue of the kettles have raised a few concerns. I'm quite some of us have been following what's happening in Mundri, what happened in Kajukeji. All those factors raise legitimate concerns from the community. So I have to be honest, that may not be as equal as Bahar Ghazal. It may be divided. What are the percentages? The reality will show us on the ground. But we may have, of course, numbers counts, but at the end of the day, physical evidence of paper ballots can count. And specifically when poverty is very high, people are ready to wear t-shirts, whether blue or red, as long as they have a return behind the t-shirts, but the day of the voting may be different. So I'd like to confirm to that question that my take is that may not be as equal as what we have seen in Baragazal. And even Baragazal, let me things, and you know how elections play its game. That have to be honest and sincere to this particular ground. Coming to the campaign of the political parties, one of the constraints, I have to be honest and sincere to you, I have seen other political parties opening up their offices, as I mentioned, 5 in Juba without any restrictions. I have to be honest. They've been opening Juba without restriction, but financial limitations is going to constrain some parties in campaigning. And that goes back to the question of financing. So some financial risk. So the only two which may play a game around at least is SPLM and SPLM-IO because of the resources they have from their representation in the government. And some of them already have politicians who have a financial base that can contribute to their pockets. But these newly established parties, I don't think they're going to have financial capability of doing similar campaign like that. And that's why I'm saying we're observing finances that are associated with that. But I've seen, at least I will assure you that I've attended 5 events in person and I speak as a civil society under the invitation, and I've challenged the registrar of the political party because I found him in those events, and I've challenged people of national security who are deployed there that please, freedom must be allowed to everybody to exercise it if you want to test free and credible. If 5 people can do their campaign in Juba compared to big people who can do nationwide, but the 5 are campaigning without any restriction is much more better than when you restrict the 5 and you allow the big one to go outside there. So that was my message, that I've seen some cases campaigning. The other challenge coming in is the publicity. The 5 campaigns I've seen, I've never seen state TV, and this also tells you a bit of a respect of democracy, because the state TV like SSBC is supposed to be open for all political parties. So there's a biasness also in the side of the media, instead of the state-owned media in covering campaigns of other small political parties. Even if there are 6, 7, let SSBC reflect that at least 6, 7 people have gathered in these 3, and they're doing their party things as equal as the big one, like what happened in WOW. So that element of the media is something I'd like to bring, that also it could have shown people like in the diaspora to know that also even 10 people have gathered and they've been projected and they've been given the space in the TV as equal as the big one that are running, like what I've seen in the media outlet. So the question also, media playing a very instrumental role in covering. And even I've challenged some private medias. As I've said, 5 parties who have been launched. If you see online media, today are all red and blue. There's some small parties that have done their events, nothing has been reflected, but some media houses have reflected. All this comes to the capability of the media in providing equal coverage to political events so that we can inform the diaspora. But I have confirmed to you, I have seen 5 parties personally. I've been the agenda, I've spoken the agenda as an activist, and I push the authorities that if this culture continue, South Sudan that we want, we can attain if we don't restrict such space. That's what I'd like to answer the question. In terms of the IG, of course, IG and IO are now campaigning. This campaign goes there. First president and first vice president are in campaign. But why other vice presidents are not in campaign is a personal question that goes to them. But also it could have questions the same way with the resources, with the state affluations. And this goes back to the first question. If we don't distinguish between the ruling party and the state, that's going to be problematic. That's going to say. Preconditions, I've spoken about this before, that preconditions are very important. I've mentioned the 5 preconditions. None of them has been delivered. It's still 0. And that question, the question of free and fair elections that are in upcoming elections, in an upcoming proposed timeline of December 2024, that's going to happen. In terms of Rueng, as I said, we're investigating, but I feel Rueng is a new trigger. And my worry is that that may go to the link of Rueng and unity, but still we are investigating. And I said after 3 days, for your audience, I'll provide my independent investigation. Of course, citizen is investigating. We need to establish enough, we need to do enough background check and a lot of background review, why this happened now, as I said, in this particular time, and why all this time there's no Rueng, but why Rueng is triggering now, and why we're facing elections. I'll provide that in 3 days' time if I can be availed a space by Lex Media to do that. The national budget proposed $200 million for the elections. But remember, a budget is a draft, it's not a real. So we need to look into that. How much were being paid for the elections? 0. Right now, 0, I have to tell you very clear. What is only happening is that government and the UN have established something called Joint Task Force. Joint task force still is in a paper planning stage, no pledges. And I'm quite sure there are going to be any pledge from any foreign government towards the elections. Why? Because even the elections is within the framework of the extended period, and this extended period has been disputed. So while also the preconditions of, and you might have seen the position of the Americans and the position of Traker lately. For them, the condition is that elections will be treated to be fair and credible if the prerequisites that were enshrined in the agreement were delivered. So that means they can't give money if the prerequisite as enshrined by the agreement is not delivered. And I've mentioned in the beginning of my talk about the 5 prerequisites that I've mentioned there. So electoral budget per now is not there. And that's why these parties are campaigning, and that's why we're questioning as an independent organization, where do they get the money? Do they get it from public treasury or not? And how much of the public treasury have been used over that? And I said, of course, something that we need to do an investigative work. And if we're supposed to have investigative journalism, we need to question. I mean, Aina Laka Haza, the campaigns Al-Mashida. So from where did you get it for these campaigns? And I said, both of them, being blue or being red, we need to look into the finances behind the campaigns. Let me give chance for others to respond, to ask questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edmund. I have some few questions on this comment section. Same thing in Clubhouse. I don't know if these people want to come up or we just read it out. Okay, there's a question coming from Attack. Attack is asking you that there is no doubt President Salva Kiir will win the election. My question is, who do people really think they can win against the President Kiir? That's the question come from Attack. And the second question comes from Samuel Kur. Samuel Kur is asking you, can you pass this question to Edmund? What is the promise the parties are giving to people of South Sudan for election? That's a question number 2 from Simon Kur in Clubhouse. And the third question is coming from on Facebook. Let me pull it up. That is good. It said that Edmund is election going on to be 2024. If yes, how it is going to look like according to your analysis. And that's fourth question come from Ngor on Facebook. He's asking you that what is EPOC stand for, Mr. Speaker. So that the fourth question there. Go ahead and answer those. Thank you. Mute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Per the level of influence, president is influential against the unknown candidates. Because right now I have to keep the word unknown candidates. We only know one candidate that is endorsed right now.
There's another question coming. I forgot it. Warele just had the he deleted it before, but he posted again. Warele is asking, Yakani, what are the chances for the reputation of refugees and IDP on time in upcoming election? Thank you, Aurelia. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to say, per the assessment, per now, the only candidate we know for the seat of the presidency that is come public from his party, not in line with the endorsement of the National Election Commission, per SPLM timetable, is His Excellency President Salva. By his assessment, his numbers is high. We have not yet known any candidate that have come forward and say, I'm going to contest, except from Peter Manyongdi, the former Minister of Humanitarian. He's the only opposition who came out, and he didn't come out in a public rally, come out in his own live interview in the radio, say, I'm going to contest and I'm going to stand for the presidency. So that's Peter Manyongdi, the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. He's the only one. We have not yet had whether his first vice president declared or other vice president declared their intention for presidency. So that's the one that is still. Per now, as official campaigns have not yet rolled out, and we have not yet seen that free unrestricted campaigns, for us to draw percentage for candidature, I will real honestly say, let's give it a time until when the campaigns started and when we start seeing citizens running on the streets behind rally, when they decide not to eat lunch because their candidates is coming. That's why our percentage is. But per now, His Excellency President is having the dominance of influence with the status of also being as a president of the Republic and chair of the SPLM. So there, he's the candidate who declared himself. But I would say drawing conclusions, let's wait for the open space when it's becoming free. And of course, elections is political, and politics, you can count them when the numbers start running behind you. But I've seen SPLM numbers are already 100% behind His Excellency President Salva. That's all I'd like to say. So I'd like to say to this candidate, for this particular person who has a question, wait for time to come for the campaign and we can draw conclusions. The question around what promises are the parties having? Honestly, by now I've never seen any political party coming with a manifesto. Even the manifesto of SPLM for the elections is not there. They're endorsing. I don't know whether anybody have come across SPLM manifesto for 2024 elections. I've never seen. But there's a generic statement, and the generic statement is secured under, we will never return the country to war. We want to make sure that power is transferred peacefully. We want to make sure that we adhere to our citizens' rights. Those are generic sentiments, very general statements. We need to see practical. What programs are you offering us if we vote for you? And of course, that will come when the Electoral Commission comes to exist. And that's why the word prematured much more act as a standing point for defining what is going on now. So there's not yet promises from the parties, and still we have empty promises, and some of the promises remain unknown, as this word unknown in South Sudan becoming common because of unknown gunmen and the rest. 2024 elections, if we don't meet the preconditions, it's going to be a violent elections. I have to be honest. If we don't meet the preconditions for the elections, per the question of the colleague I've asked about my analysis, it's going to be violent. And it's no longer violence on political ideology. It's going to be violence of ethnic rivaling over the control of power. And mainly at the state level, is going to be worse than at national and local level. State level is going to be tense in terms of that. And specifically, when you have too many independent candidates, that is it. And of course, the messages we have per now, the parties, SPLM-IO, SPLM, their control of the state parliaments is going to be minimum. I don't think they're going to take dominance. Independents are going to run it so much. Per what we can see per the literature or per the research we're doing is that independent candidates are going to stand firm, where in specific independent candidates represent interests of the communities. And that's what I'm saying, it's going to be violent on ethnic line because some communities feel they're at risk and they need to get represented by on their members, regardless of the political establishment in the country. And that's why it's very important to have a conflict management messaging too early like this. That's what I like to say, that I like to bring forward. So, and this comes back to this question of will you activists, opposition, and non-governmental allies believe the results? The results is determined by right from the beginning. Now, we can believe on the results if the principle of credible, equal space, non-discrimination campaigns, because right now we can't really judge until when the Electoral Commission declared the official process and the legal process started. Right now is a party influence, party using their resources to do that. But as long the preconditions are not met by the requirement of the electoral law and the agreement, there's a high chance that results is going to be challenged and results is going to be below the standard of free and fair. That's what they say. And there's this question coming up, why is it only SPLM, the only one campaigning in the country, and why other opposition parties does not campaign openly to the states? As I said, one, there's an element of resources to my brother James. In terms of other parties have not enough resources, the two at least have enough. We have seen SPLM-IO been campaigning in more than one state. They've been establishing the offices. That's is happening. But also we have seen the element of media coverage. Even one of the things I would like to tell my brother like James, even if 5 people are campaigning in one location, let the media cover them. Let SSBC project them so that it tells people in the diaspora to see that also even 5 people have campaigned under a tree. That's another things that come up. And of course, same questions are coming. And rigging of elections started right now, my brother. If that's why we've been keen calling for things to go in a legal manner per the law, so that we avoid this question of rigging of elections. And this is a question that was raised before that I'd like to bring forward. There's this question around the IDPs and the refugees. Is a debate. Experts were telling us, we're reaching out to electoral experts. Experts were telling us that refugees can vote for the position of presidency. It's manageable. But they can't vote for MPs because it's very expensive. IDPs, there's 2 systems. IDPs can vote for their constituency, but it's expensive in transferring their votes into their constituency, and it's very risky to avoid manipulations of the votes. And that's why people are saying, like, look here, IDPs can have the question, but refugees is only limited to the seat of presidency at the parliament. In terms of government preparation for repatriation and return, is not going to be easy. The only thing that we don't smile for it, but is the only situation of Sudan has forced our refugees to return back home because it's a forceful return with the violent situation in Sudan. But I don't think government have really proper plan to return IDPs to the areas of origin and then refugees to come back in country to engage in the election. So there's a debate going on now between electoral experts in the world that have been in a post-conflict situation. How do we manage refugees issue? How do we manage IDPs? But there's a debate going on even in the electoral public hearing we organized with a lot of academia. It's a ban of the burning issue. And there were committee members of the Justice and Legislation were tasked to take some studies from other countries, and some experts were identified to be reached out to inform the country in terms of enactment of the electoral law. How do we handle refugees and IDPs issues there? But repatriation, I will tell you, there's no plan about repatriation. Even the budget have nothing to do with repatriation. What does CEPO stand for? It stands for, C is for community, E is for empowerment, P is for progress, E is for organization. Community Empowerment for Progress Organization. It is a national South Sudanese NGO. We're running it as South Sudanese. We are across the country, we stand for all the country. We're in the 10 states, we're in the administrative areas, and we are a national identity organization. We're deployed everywhere. We have a staff, and you can Google around it. You can go to our website, you can Google online, you can write Community Empowerment for Progress Organization. You have more online information about that. You can download about who we are and what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Yakani. We are come to close. We have 8 minutes for our talk show to end. Let me yield this session to my co-host in Clubhouse, Matolid, if you want to say something, and before we let our guests go, you can open your mic. Go ahead. Matolid, are you there? Okay. Hang on. Ngor is asking you that his last question to you. Where is it? There's it. Okay, Ngor is asking you my last question to the speaker. Will the president be able to allow the citizen of South Sudan to be able to elect their own governors after Kiir win the election, instead of him always be a one-man policy to appoint the governors through degree? I like this question. Go ahead.
And also, I like it. It's one of the questions in our. Thank you very much. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I would like to tell more our assessment per now. Governors of parties are going to find it hard to win the votes of the public than independent governors. Our calculation is that likely the seats of the governors in the 10 states are going to be 50-50. Independents are going, and specifically when you have independency that represent the interest of the community. I have to be honest with my brother Ngor, is that our assessment. And that's why if you see the law, the parties are very aggressive about the independence, by the way. The concept of the independence, the electoral law was tightened to the level that even the parties are not interested to hear the word independent candidate. But I'll tell you, the governorship is going to be tense. Our calculations that independent candidates are going to win, to be sincere with you. And of course, you know what happened in Lakes when independents win. And later on, they were sacked out of being independent, voted in. And we have seen what happened with the governor of Western Equatoria. But honestly, the seat of the governor, there's a seat that I'd like to mention here, clear to your audience. And this goes to supporters of SPLM, supporters of SPLM-IO. They should get it very clear, and supporters of other political parties. That one, the generational build-up of the current South Sudan is no longer transactional. Let me repeat. The current generation of South Sudan of the voters is no longer a generation that you can play with them in election as in a transactional manner. No. The current generation are matured. The level of education they have is high. If not educated, they're exposed. Most of them are young. And I'd like to tell my South Sudanese in the diaspora, wherever you are, the South Sudanese that we see in country are more liberal. Are more liberal, by the way. You know, sometimes the scenario, it's a small case study. As an activist, I've been moving in the States. I can hear liberal voices. People saying, look here, we are fed up of the old voices. We want to get new voices. In Unity State, I got a praise. Some young people tell me, we don't want the remnants of 1972 and then 1983 to dominate power now. So you can see, these are messages of liberal speakers. So, and I'm quite sure, let me tell you, even he said that anybody going to contest in presidency, their votes will be determined to win the presidency by the level of their acceptance of what community see as their candidates that they want to vote for. And that's what I'm saying. The T-shirts of today, being blue, being red, it's not the determining factor. The determining factor is when you're going to confront the actual voters with your message, and you're telling the voters your candidate, your choice that you want with, I don't want to go with, is going to be tense. And the repetition from 2013 until now, and versus the elections, is a very good lesson, very good teacher that have educated people about the behaviors of leaders. So it's going to be tough, honestly. It's not going to be easy, and that's why if you don't respect the principle of free and fair, it's going to end up violent. So I like the question. It's a big question for anybody who want to contest as a president, right from His Excellency President Salva and the rest who are still unknown. They must find an answer to this question. So this question is not for me. This question is a principal question to anybody who want to contest for presidency. And I will wish that this question should be printed and put boldly for whoever is going to interview candidates who are going to presidency. Can they answer this question? Well, I feel it's a beautiful question. It's a question of questioning political consciousness and respecting the vote of the citizen and the power of the citizens. As the Constitution says, power of the nation rests on the vote of the citizens. That is it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for a wonderful question. We appreciate it. Will is asking what is behind President Key didn't visit Unity Statement here, seeing he became a president.
Can I ask this question, Madid, if you don't mind?
We are about to close the show. Go ahead and answer that question.
Let him go ahead.
Okay. Did you get that question from Willie? Okay. General Cortez, go ahead and answer your question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you can.
No. It's a national duty. We are building our country. Don't apologize. We have to dialogue about our nation.
My question to you, how do you view the Chief Justice going and campaigning with President Kiir? Is that tells us, the people of South Sudan, that the justice is independent, or justice also a red color? And if there is a dispute in election, who is going to dispute it? We already seen that the Chief Justice is ready to take side, and the justice is in question. And thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my answer to you is that independence of judiciary is under question already. And you might have seen the social media, people are questioning, will he really be objective if we're disputing votes against the president? That's another question that independence of judiciary is under question. And to my colleague who answered the question around the tour, I wish president should tour all the states. And if he's touring, he's not tour alone. I still repeat myself. They tour as a presidency to give citizens confidence that our politicians also have compromised, because we can argue, we can hate each other, we can be aggressive on each other, but tolerance and compromise is the end results that each of us must take shoulder and must swallow. If it's a bitter pill, if it's a sweet pill, swallow. We must tolerate and we must compromise for the best interest of our nation and the respect of the lives of those who have lost for struggling with the independence. Some of them might have died with hunger. Children might have died in the bush because their mother and their father have left them and they have run away, and their death is painful, but all contribute to the what today we call independent Republic of South Sudan. So we must swallow bitter pills and sweet pills, and these are already tolerance and compromise. So for me, we must have compromise. We can't continue being harsh. We can disagree, but we must reach to a point of compromise. So I think for me, and compromise not from one side, compromise have to be from all sides. Being incumbent, being opposition, being in the government, being outside the government, we must all compromise for the best interest of the nation, so the legacy we leave behind is a progressive South Sudan, not a failed South Sudan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a question coming out from Clubhouse. There's a lot of questions. Okay, there's a question coming from Clubhouse from Nimir. He said that the importance of campaign seemed to be illegal because there is no eligible law to regulate them. Also, the presidential candidate is supposed to be elected through a party strategy. What do you have to say about this, Yakani? And then the second question he has continued, the person, will an regulated campaign not police side, the people further, what is a delay, the electoral and political party law?
You said polarize.
Yeah, polarize. Yes. Yeah. So go ahead and answer those. And the other question comes from Wally, said that Yakani, I have a question here. What do the most people doubt the upcoming general election? So those are the three questions. I think those are
yeah. One, the doubt is because the prerequisite enshrined agreement is not being delivered for the last 3 years. What miracle can they make in a period of 12 months? That's where the public doubts are. And of course, someone like me who is a signatory to the revitalized agreement on behalf of the civil society, I share the same doubt. And that's why I keep on questioning them. What miracle will they perform towards the last minute for that? And that's where there's huge mistrust, doubts, and all this coming and all that around the campaign. That's one, that's my answer. And this also answered this question of around a loophole and mistrust. Of course, these are all associated with lack of respecting the normal standards for elections. And the traditional standard for election is that law have to be in a place, an institution like commission have to be in a place, commission have to declare primaries, parties have to do primaries within party structures, and after primaries within party structures, they have to endorse, submit to the electoral commission. Then the normal traditional steps of elections is not be respected, and that increases the doubts, increases the mistrust on the electoral process, and that where loopholes has been identified. If I can answer that together with the last question being raised. And of course, this goes together with the other questions. People have been polarized already, and even in Baragazal, the regional endorsements and party members are questioning, like, we're supposed to go for our own party internal structures. Why are we going for public rallies to put that? But the question is, after public rallies, are we respecting the party manifesto and party standards, where you're supposed to have internal party members that contain legitimacy in the party? Because what they're doing is that's a public rally, so you mobilize every public to do that. So that's a big question that it's raised, the question to that, and that I can connect with the other question is, people are already been polarized, to be honest. People are saying, what happened, what's going on, and we can see more, and give it time. Because as I said in the beginning, I don't know if your audience are respecting the numbers that we have seen in WOW is been mobilized from Baragazal region. It's not a population of WOW. Some have been ferried from Warab, from Lakes, from northern Baragazal to come and attend. Later on, if they return, let's see how WOW look like after the return. So those are the things I want to respond to. Media coverage is totally poor in the country. Imagine today, big rally is not even been broadcast event. Yeah, and that's why I've been advocating to my brother. My joke is that also I challenge donors. If donors were saying we're standing for free and fair elections, can they fund media to cover? Because if they finance media, because media is a mirror that projects to the citizens whether it's free and fair. And if you say we're fighting misinformation, disinformation, fake news, if media is struggling to find the space of coverage. So also the question of, in electoral processes, lack of funding to media, it undermines credibility of elections, have to be made it very clear. Like now, as this elects media, we're arguing here, the question is how many people are watching and how much is Lex media being exposed out there. And that's what sometimes I like to ask people, that actually, why don't we start fundraising for ourselves? Because sometimes also this foreign aid is having its own attached shrinkings behind it. So for me, it's a high time that also I've been demanding donors. I was 2 days ago in a donor event. I challenged donors. As much you challenge, you want to see free and fair elections, finance the media to reach out, to cover events and to project events. So I do agree with my joke is that part of our work as civil society to campaign for support for media and to ensure media is having a support of reaching out to the masses and projecting to the masses. Because like now, what Lex Media is doing, I'm quite sure thousands of people are watching. But if you turn this from an online to a physical media, to a physical TV, we could have gained a lot. But also media give us a space to educate ourselves. I may be biased somewhere through media, you may correct me and adjust. So such a dialogue is not always that is a perfect from one speaker. No, even myself, I'm learning from the nature of the questions being asked me, and the questions by itself, it shows me my weaknesses, and I keep on learning. And that's why I'm saying we can't build a nation by restricting dialogue. We build a nation by embracing dialogue, and we must accommodate and tolerate one's opinion each other's opinion. That's the way how nation is built. Nation is not built on a tick. Nation is built between even why are you taking now, why didn't take yesterday. So that argument is the beauty of framing the nation that we want. So media is very important. And I will still continue saying, if you talk about free, fair, credible elections, without funding media, you are actually contributing to undermine the credibility of elections without financing media. Thank you.
Thank you, Akani. Yeah, and, this question, Majok, thank you for Majok. Thank you for your question. Yeah, you know, this, hang on, Doctor. We are about to run out of time. Yeah, this event going on while we send our staff, legislative send his staff over there to cover the event, to put the event on live on legislative media page. But we facing challenges. Number one challenges is network issues about that. Number two, security. So as we know, because some of the online media, it's hard to do the live video with the camera, but we smartphone, that there is a way we can put on live so that the people around can watch. But security about that has South Sudan government put the law that there's no any phone allowed to record, especially when the president is present. So those are the challenges that we encourage and tell the government of South Sudan, you need to give a media coverage opportunity to any device that they have, a smartphone. So let them cover it so that people of South Sudan can have accurate information. Because there are so much propaganda in social media. But if we go down, that's what we do in legislative media. We reach out to bring accurate information so that people can have the right information they need to hear and listen. So, Dr. Dwala, I will give you this chance to weigh in your question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just one question. Yesterday, I think some gunshots were actually heard yesterday around the Parliament of South Sudan in Juba after the Salva Kiir left to wow. And I say today. This is this can suggest a military takeover between the security after the Kiir left J1, or what do you think if this is the relationship between the fighting in Juba and the visit of Kiir to wow?
I see a picture on that.
Okay, let me answer. Let me answer. I know the question you're asking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me. I was practical on the ground. I'll provide an answer. I was practical on the ground because it happened, and then I have observers alerted me. Then practical, I went to the close site. It is close to the Parliament where it happened. If some of you are well versed of Juba, there's a place called Nakasongola. Nakasongola was an IDP scheme of actually population who came during the time of the 1983 struggle. So is in the western side of the Parliament, close to the water point, or what do you call west north of the Grand Mausoleum. There's a premise of a church. That place used to house an IDPs. There's a premise. That land is a government land. They start from there up to the site of the 7 days Adventist and continue as a government land, but by then was used to accommodate IDPs. So when the IDPs came there, there's IDPs who came from actually ethnic group. So they established churches there. 2 churches were established there. There's one African Inland Church and there's one Catholic Church. Catholic Church was called Nakasongola, which is for the Catholics. So when the peace agreement was signed of the CPA, after a certain period of time, the government came and asked the Catholic Church, since the IDPs have left, this place is empty. As a church, this is our government land. Can you vacate? The church vacated it. Catholic Church vacated officially. And I would like to tell your audience, today I speak to Bishop Santo of Juba Diocese. He gave me the seminar that as a Catholic they vacated because I was issuing a statement. So Santo proved to me as a Catholic they left. A Church of African Inland Church was left there. Then there's a dispute between the government in terms of Central Equatorial State and the Parliament and the church, because the government was saying the Catholic Church has vacated because by then it's a government land. We only accommodate IDPs of that particular situation. Now, can you vacate? So the African Land Church couldn't vacate. So there was a long, over 2 or 3 years dispute. I've been following that incident, a court dispute between the court, the government of Central Equatorial State, and the church. Then the court ruled in favor, the state court ruled in favor of this government. So when the court ruled in favor of the government, another lawyer took the case to East African Court of Justice. And the court in South Sudan have given an eviction letter for the church to quit because the government area need to be used for government infrastructure. So today, when police were deployed to work out with the church leadership for the church to vacate the area, the church believers, the worshippers, came and stormed the police, and the police shoot a gun. For almost, it took about 45 minutes, where there's a running around the town, people are running around the town. So it's not a Bill Farm incident, it's not a J1 incident, it's not a National Security Blue House incident, it's not an incident anywhere. It is a confrontation between believers of a church and the police. The timing may sound unique, but it was an incident that since last week I've been closely monitoring that. So that's my answer to you. So the gunshots in Juba town was a police dispersing believers who refused for their church to be demolished. The church is supposed to be demolished. So that's the incident. So it's nothing to do with like breakout in a Bill Farm or in J1 or in a ministries or in a government facility or in a security facility. No, it's a church and the police confrontation. So that's what I like to say. Of course, I have seen the social media. People have taken it up to their personal interest and they have published the news. Some even declared that, you are here already, people are running to Uganda. Somebody sent me an image that look here, people are packing. Somebody sent an image of refugees living in DRC. So he said, like, look here, Edmond, what they are saying. You say an activist, look at these people living in Juba now, they're going to Uganda. And then will the president come back to Juba? Why are you staying in Juba? I said, my brother, when I investigated, it was a DRC. I said, this is a DRC photo. Why are you raising an alarm on something that I'm closely watching at it? So, but of course, from 3:30, Juba become calm. There's roadblocks established just to control the public, because also in that incident, some grabbers came in. People started looting. Even one of a journalist who is working with one of our private radio station called Classic FM, his motorbike was stolen. That incident of gun shooting, people running here and there. He was doing a cover in the parliament. Somebody ran away with his motorbike. So people who are looting also take place. So police have to create roadblocks to block people running to loot shops, because people who are in shops, they start closing their shops because they're afraid of the gunshots. But it was a gunshot that shot on air as a dispatcher of believers. So I have to be accurate and honest to you, the audience.
Thank you, Edmund. That's a wonderful update. That's a good thing, so people can know what's going on. But our people in social media, they think good propaganda thing, which is not accurate. Thank you. By this time, I would like to say thank you for those of you in Clubhouse, Facebook, YouTube for wonderful discussion, waiting a good question. So this is the time that I will end up our talk show. I would like to say thank you so much, my brother in Yakani, for always coming in and feed us the right information to our public. I will hear my microphone back to you so that you can put in your last statement before I close down the show. Thank you.
My last statement is that dialogue is the only option that will make us South Sudanese reach consensus of the South Sudan we want. And let's do the dialogue in a constructive, responsible manner. And let us build in ourselves sense of compromise and tolerance. South Sudan is beautiful. South Sudan is a great nation. If we can have a political attitude on believing that our own political attitudes will determine, mine and yours, will determine the South Sudan we want. When our political attitudes become clean, nationalistic, we will win South Sudan. Let us show the strengths we have shown in the basketball, in our politics, so that the world will stand up and say, we respect that country called the Republic of South Sudan, per their flag, their national anthem, and their citizens with a different ethnic identity. They stand one as a one nation, as a one country, as a one people. And we will hold our hands together and say, thanks to God for availing us our independence in this particular moment. And we respect the life of those contribute that we have made an independence today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Irmon. Thank you for a wonderful statement. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. I will see you back next time, because we have a lot of show coming up, and I would like to invite it IO member, which is in Juba, and IG to bring them together so we can
actually what I will do. Let me share with you this, Abraham. Let me share with you, Abraham.
Yeah.
I will try my level best to reach to Peter Lam and to reach to Regina, the secretary of IO in Malakal, the secretary of SPLM in WOW, Malakal blue, WOW red. Let's bring them with their shirts, blue shirt and red shirt. Let them face you and your audience. Let us see. I will try my level best. I hope you respect. I have access to both of them. So I'll reach out to them to come with their t-shirts, not in any suit.
Yeah, exactly.
The same way. That's how Malakal look like, and that's how WOW look like. Let us try that best.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, let's try it. That would be the next show. Thank you, Edmund. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That would be the next show. Thank you, Edmund. Have a good night. Thank
in Juba, Electoral, William, in Benti, wala kwaju, wow, William, in Malakal, wala pinyaram, William.